My sister ruined my life over a man who didn't know her name, so I made him mine. Now she's posting cry-faced selfies online. My younger sister Natalie has been using the same excuse since she turned 21. She can't have her one true love, so she's free to destroy everyone else's. And I don't mean that in a sweet, still hung up on her ex sense. I mean, if you're happy, she'll find a way to make you unhappy, then blame it on her sad love story, her one true love Amanda, whom she met at a college party 4 years ago. They connected once. He never phoned, and that somehow became her origin narrative for being a part of. It began with her best friend since kindergarten, Camille. Natalie spent the weekend at Camille's apartment, and by Monday, Camille's boyfriend was texting Natalie good morning. When Camille discovered them together in her own bed, Natalie stated, "You don't understand what it's like to lose your soulmate." Camille never spoke with her again. Then came our cousin's engagement celebration. Natalie arrived in a dress that cost more than my rent, drank wine, and cornered the groom in the restroom. His exact words later. She kept saying I reminded her of someone special. Thank God he pushed her away and informed his fiancé right away. But Natalie cried to our parents about how witnessing happy couples made her feel traumatized. Mom treated her to a spa weekend to help her heal. By the time I met Amanda, I was familiar with the drill. I excluded him from family dinners, removed Natalie from my social media accounts, and informed him that my sister was going through a difficult time and needed space. For 2 years, it worked. We got engaged last spring. A small ceremony was planned, nothing extravagant, just us and our close friends. I did make one mistake, however. I addressed it during Mom's birthday supper. Natalie's eyes brightened up as if Christmas had arrived early. "I'm so happy for you," she murmured, hugging me. "When do I get to meet him?" A week later, Amanda laughed as he showed me his phone. "Your sister found me on Instagram with some fake account. Look at these messages." We read them together, mocking her desperate situation, and he swore to block her. 3 weeks before my wedding, I had the illness. Bad. Amanda was going to attend his brother's golf tournament that day, but a buddy who lived near Natalie's apartment complex phoned me to come over since I was already at my sister's. "What?" she asked. She'd noticed Amanda's Tesla in the visiting area. My chest got cold. Despite my sickness, I drove there and used the spare key Natalie had given me for emergencies. I discovered them on her couch, her head in his lap and his hand in her hair, both half-dressed. She looked up at me, phony tears already forming. "I'm so sorry," she muttered. "He just reminds me so much of Amanda." I stormed out. He did not even attempt to rescue what we had. That's when I determined she'd find out what losing is actually like. Amanda was not some mysterious figure who simply vanished. We had actually been following each other on Instagram for 3 years. We had mutual acquaintances from college and would occasionally like each other's postings, but we never really chatted. He lived 3 hours away, worked as a physical therapist, and shared footage of his golden retriever. So I slid into his DMs with a simple message. "Hey, this is weird, but my sister had a thing for you in college and just ruined my wedding. Want to help me ruin her life?" He responded in 12 minutes. "Natalie, the girl who arrived at my mother's house. I'm in." It turns out she drove to his hometown and introduced herself to Amanda's mother as if she were an old acquaintance, delivering a skewed story about how he was the love of her life and how they had been separated by circumstances. His poor mother believed it. She invited Natalie to tea. They took selfies together and she even wrote, "Reuniting with my dear future mother-in-law." Amanda sent me everything. Screenshots, videos, and even audio of his mother saying, "She seems so sincere, dear. I'm sorry if I caused any problems." That's when I realized Natalie was not going to quit. She had no idea how to love. All she knew was how to possess. And whatever she couldn't have, she destroyed. But this time, she didn't plan for 2 things. I was no longer the sister who let things slip. And Amanda was willing to participate in the game. We planned every step. He would come to see me on the weekend of the family meal. I hadn't spoken to Natalie since I found her with Amanda. But I knew she'd be there because it was my father's birthday. And no one ever misses the ideal family gathering. And me? I'd show up with Amanda, holding hands, smiling, and acting precisely as she'd imagined with him. On Friday, I picked Amanda up from the bus terminal. He was much more attractive in person, gregarious, witty, and polite, the type of man who shines naturally. Natalie could not control this man, and he was well aware of it. We practiced our lines and coordinated our gestures in the van before pulling up in front of my parents' house at 1 p.m. on Saturday. I strolled in with a new dress, high heels, and a smile on my face. Amanda held my hand as if we had been in love for years. Natalie was in the living room, laughing with my uncle when she noticed us. Her chuckle stopped in her throat. "Everyone," I declared as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "This is Amanda." The name struck her like lightning. She turned white, then red, before forcing herself to smile as if it were funny. "Amanda," she said, attempting an uneasy laugh. "Wow, what a coincidence." He smiled politely. "Hi, Natalie. Good to see you again." That annihilated any control she still claimed to have. She stuttered something, but I was already sitting alongside him, shooting photos and sharing anecdotes. My every motion was a slash to her vanity. During lunch, she attempted to converse with him, reminiscing about something from college that never existed. But Amanda kept looking at me the entire time, calling me love, and wrapping his arm around my shoulders. Natalie pushed her lips together as if swallowing glass shards each time he did this. She couldn't bear the birthday toast anymore. She locked herself inside the bathroom. I followed her. I knocked till she opened the door. "What do you want now?" she questioned, her makeup ruined and her eyes begging. "Just came to see if you're okay," I said, pretending to be concerned. After all, it must be difficult to recognize a soulmate in your sister's embrace. "You're doing this just to hurt me, and you destroyed my engagement just because you couldn't stand to see me happy. So no, Natalie. This here is justice." "He was mine," she exclaimed, pounding the wall. "I saw him first. I felt it first." "No, Natalie, you saw him once, and he never wanted you. You invented a love story in your head and used that as an excuse to be cruel to everyone around you. But now you're going to sit and watch him love me, because unlike you, I didn't have to beg." She dropped to the floor, crying aloud. Mom knocked on the door and asked whether everything was fine. I opened it and strode out, head held high. I returned to the living room and sat next to Amanda. He kissed my forehead and murmured, "She's going to lose it even more. Are you ready?" I smiled. I've never been more ready. The next day, the consequences were clear. Mom contacted me early, pleading for empathy. She claimed Natalie had spent the entire night sobbing, that she was vulnerable, and that I should not have provoked her. "Provoking?" I asked, laughing sarcastically. "You think showing up with my boyfriend at a family gathering is provoking? Or is it that Natalie just can't stand to see anyone happy without her being the center of attention?" She sighed on the other end of the line, as if I were the issue. "Honey, your sister has a sensitive heart. She gets attached easily." "Sensitive?" I interrupted. "Mom, she slept with my fiancé. She destroyed my wedding, and you're worried about her feelings?" I was feverish, alone at home, and she was lying with him on the couch remembering Amanda. "You're not going to flip this around. Look, let's talk another day." She hung up. At that point I understood no one there was going to protect me. The entire family has always treated Natalie like a broken ornament, but they forget she has claws. She'd always had them. Only now had she turned those claws on herself. On Monday, Amanda was still in town. I planned to take him to breakfast with several of my friends who had been following Natalie's activities since high school. He was a showstopper, charming, gentle, charismatic, and utterly committed to me. The girls exchanged enchanting glances. Some said, "This revenge is too beautiful." But the best part happened in the afternoon. Amanda posted an Instagram photo of us hugging at the park. Sometimes love appears when you least expect it. The remarks began discreetly with a relative, an old classmate, and heart emoticons. But then Natalie showed up. Camilla soulmate commented, "This is disgusting. You know what he means to me." Amanda appreciated her message and responded with surgical precision. "We hooked up once, Natalie. Once. And you followed me down the street the next day. That's not love. It's an obsession." Boom. Among less than an hour, the message sparked conversation among our social circles. People who had known Natalie since high school began making comments like, "Finally someone said it. I always thought the way she talked about him was strange." Karma exists. She didn't respond to the post, but she did send me a series of WhatsApp voice messages crying and shouting, asking how I could use him against her. One of the phone messages said, "You're destroying my life for revenge." I responded with a short text. "Number, I'm just showing how to rebuild after being destroyed. Something you never knew how to do." And immediately, without ceremony, I blocked her. But I was still not done. Not yet. I knew she wouldn't give it up easy. And sure enough, on Thursday night, I received a notification that Natalie had posted on Instagram. A selfie with a sobbing face, swollen eyes, and low bedroom lighting. And the caption, "It's hard to see your sister steal the man you love. Laugh at your pain and be applauded for it. I'm not perfect, but no one deserves this." More than 1,000 likes. People are commenting, "Stay strong. Take care. You'll get through this." What hurts the most? Someone close to me reposted it. The next morning I visited my parents' residence. Mom answered the door, shocked. "What are you doing here?" "I came to talk with everyone." I walked inside. Dad was inside the living room. Natalie came down the stairs with sweatpants and hair tied back, as if she were attending a funeral, and I was the victim's face. "Did something happen?" she said, almost politely. "Something did happen. Enough of you manipulating everyone and coming out like you're the poor victim." I paused in the middle of the living room, looking at both of them. "Mom, Dad, did you see the post? Do you really think it's fair? Do you remember who destroyed whose engagement?" "Honey, this isn't how you solve." Mother tried. "Number now, you're going to listen." I turned to Natalie. "You seduced Amanda. You stabbed me in the back. You said sorry with fake tears and thought you'd continue to be the family princess, but now the tables have turned. You're the one on the ground crying, and no one's going to save you this time because it's not a sad post that will erase the screenshots, voice messages, and testimonies. Natalie, everyone realized who you really are, and the mask slipped." She remained silent, weeping. Dad looked down. "I'm tired of being the forgotten daughter while you put on little shows. Enough. The stage is mine now. And the audience? They're on my side." I departed without waiting for a response. Amanda was driving the car, the radio was on, and a cup of coffee was in the cup holder for me. "So?" he inquired. "It was beautiful," I said. "She finally saw that she has no control anymore." He smiled. "You know what? Getting revenge on her was more therapeutic than I imagined." "Yeah, and you know what's better?" "What? Part 2 is still coming?" Part 2 began with an invitation to the opening celebration for my friend Marco's new restaurant. A well-known chef in the area, with a strong presence among local influencers and extensive social media coverage. Natalie, of course, was fixated on this type of incident. She always pretended to have a life. She did not post images in store mirrors pretending to own the clothes, order expensive food to photograph, and then return it through the back door. That was it for appearances. But this time, she was not on the list. I was. Amanda was no exception. We landed on the right foot, literally. The entrance photographer stopped us to take photos, and one of them was posted on a city events profile with the caption, "Couple of the moment. Mel and Amanda steal the scene at the opening night." Natalie noticed this the next day and, of course, posted the famous indirect. Some people require the spotlight to feel alive. I prefer depth. Depth? From whom? From someone who threw herself into my fiancé's lap 3 weeks before the wedding and is now crying on the internet because a person she hardly knew has become my boyfriend? The following Saturday we attended our cousin Lena's wedding. Natalie had always felt quite close to Lena. She presumably anticipated her buddy to defuse the issue by asking me not to bring Amanda. But Lena called me personally. "Mel, please come and bring him. Everyone already knows what happened, and I don't have patience to pretend anymore with Natalie. She needs to learn that the world doesn't revolve around her." Natalie was there alone, dressed too tight, beautiful makeup, plasticized grin, pretending she hadn't noticed us as we stepped in. Amanda embraced me about the waist and occasionally kissed my cheek, and all she could do was watch. However, the highlight that made the night memorable was the bride and groom's dance. Lena very gently invited us to dance alongside them. Amanda and I were in the center, spinning slowly when Natalie attempted to approach. For the first time, she appeared unarmed. "Amanda, may I talk to you?" she inquired, giving that enticing gaze. He let go of my hand, glanced at her, and spoke calmly. "No. I'm busy loving your sister." Natalie froze. I took a deep breath, looked at her and said, "For the first time in years, I am truly loved. Something you never understood because you only know how to misinterpret attention for love." She took 2 steps back, tears in her eyes, and stumbled on her own dress hem. Nobody laughed. It was terrible. Everyone ignored her. That hurt even more. She exited the hallway a few minutes later. And me? For the first time in a long time, I continued to dance, convinced that I had won. but my favorite portion was yet to come. A few weeks later, I was invited to participate in a podcast on overcoming obstacles and making fresh starts. I didn't use any names, but I presented the narrative of the selfish sister, the unfaithful fiancé, the plotted revenge, and, of course, the unexpected romance. The episode went viral. People from all over the country are giving me letters of congratulations and saying they identify with it. Natalie listened. I know she did since, the same day, she sent a message to my DM. Do you really need to expose yourself in this manner just to get applause? And I responded without hesitation. This is not exposure. It is liberation. I spent years in your theater. Now I own the story and the stage. She never responded. In the following days, I learnt from third parties that Natalie was becoming more reclusive. Some of the brands she was attempting to collaborate with broke off communication. People began commenting on her preoccupation with Amanda. The reputation she had worked so hard to establish through filters and ready-made sentences began to collapse. And I didn't bring it down. She sank herself. And me? I kept living. Amanda was no longer only a piece of my vengeance. The truth is that in the midst of all that upheaval, he became a safe haven. A shelter disguised as an ally, but now a true partner. And with each passing day, I realized that what Natalie attempted to destroy merely strengthened me. And she, who had always wished to win by deceit, now had only silence for company. The first time I noticed I wasn't thinking about Amanda anymore was on a regular morning, weeks after Lena married. We were inside my apartment. The sun was gently beaming through the window, and Amanda was in the kitchen, shirtless, making pancakes like he had since his first week with me. And when he sang gently a song from the 2000s and performed goofy little dances that made me giggle, I knew Amanda was nothing more than a feeble shadow in a dusty corner of my mind. It wasn't just vengeance, not anymore. Amanda held my hand even though he didn't have to. He listened to my childhood recollections with a genuine smile, despite the fact that he was previously familiar with them all. It was the way he stared at me as I was reading a book on the couch, like if he needed nothing else in the world. I did not expect this. When I phoned him in that impetuous message to assist ruin my sister's fantasy, I expected him to pretend for a time until Natalie gave up, until I felt vindicated, and then things would return to normal. But it did not return. Amanda settled into a routine. Presence. Security. He met my pals, joined my work group and began leaving toothbrushes and t-shirts at my house. When my car broke down, he was the first to arrive with coffee and a tow truck. When I had an anxiety attack before an important presentation, he sat with me on the kitchen floor and remained silent, simply holding my hand until I could breathe again. And Amanda? Not even a consideration. Not a single comparison. Nothing. He who had once been the center of my existence, was now inconsequential because I had someone who was always present, even on ordinary days. Amanda was full of future promises. Amanda's current actions. We went out to dinner one night at a newly opened restaurant in town. Nothing spectacular, just a pleasant setting and tasty cuisine. When we sat down, Amanda took my hand across the table and said, in that light tone I knew so well, "You know what's funny? We started this to fool your sister, but I never pretended anything." I remained silent for a few seconds, my heart beating. "I'm not pretending anymore either," I said with an almost ashamed smile. He laughed, raising his wineglass. "To the best revenge then?" "No," I replied. "To what comes after them." We toast. And for the first time in a long time, I felt at peace. Free of animosity, ghosts, and the desire for others to recognize or validate me. I was there for me. So was he. A few days later, while going through downtown, I noticed Amanda alone, walking with his head down, as if the world was too heavy. It was automatic. I looked aside. Not from suffering, but because it no longer mattered. He noticed me, paused, and almost approached to talk. But when he saw Amanda approaching and interweaving his fingers with mine, he backed off. Perhaps he finally realized there was no more space for him. That the space he squandered with falsehoods and omissions was now occupied by someone who, without promising anything, gave me everything. That night, I embraced Amanda tighter and unconsciously said, "Thank you for showing up." He stared at me with that serene smile that spoke everything, even in quiet. And I knew that vengeance brought me justice. But it was the after that brought me love. Months passed, and what began as a harsh reaction to my sister's poison evolved into the sweetest period of my life. Amanda was no longer a strategy, a maneuver, or a well-planned provocation. He was my home, my companion in stillness and laughter. We slept together virtually every night, sometimes at my house, sometimes at his, where the golden retriever insisted on sleeping between us as if he were a guardian, an accomplice in this odd story. He formally asked me to be his girlfriend on a quiet night on the couch while we ate pizza straight from the box and watched a ridiculous documentary on marine life. "Do you think it's too early for this?" he inquired, holding the pizza box on his lap and smiling from the corner of his mouth. "Or is it already too late?" "I think we've already been through worse phases than any couple together for 20 years, I said with a giggle. "It's just a title, but yes, I want to." And that's how it remained. We didn't discuss Natalie anymore. She disappeared from discussions, social media, and communications. She blocked Amanda on everything, despite the fact that he never sought to communicate. She told others that she would never forgive me, that I had stolen the love of her life just to make her feel bad about what she lacked. She didn't even admit she ruined my wedding before all of this. But, you know what? I didn't care anymore. At first, I thought I would be concerned, that I would continue to focus on the fact that she did not admit her own fault, that I would plead for an apology, which never arrived. But the fact is that the freedom I had when I stopped seeking Natalie's approval was the best gift that the entire pandemonium provided for me. She did not forgive me. She did not come to my birthday. She did not respond to my mother's Christmas messages. She stayed away, hurt and outraged. And me? I moved on. Amanda and I traveled to the countryside. This time, he met his mother officially. He helped paint the walls of the new clinic he opened. I learned how to deal with the messy dog. We gradually developed a routine that was light, honest, and free of masks and gimmicks. We were laying in the hammock one day, listening to the wind and birds, when he asked me, "Do you still think all of this was just for revenge?" After a few seconds of contemplation, I grinned and turned to face him. Maybe it started that way, but it ended up being the best thing I ever did for myself. He kissed my forehead, and we remained silent. Revenge became love. And strangely, that must have caused the most pain for Natalie. She had always wanted to be the center, the most attractive, the most sought, and the most deserving of attention. But it was off stage, away from the narrative she was constantly attempting to create, that I discovered what she had spent her entire life pretending to have. I was never the family's highlight. I was never the most adored. I was never a perfect sister. But I was the only one who understood how to turn anguish into power, rejection into liberation, and vengeance into love. And no one will ever take it away from me. 6 months later, when I thought the storms had passed, I received an unexpected phone call. It was Amanda. I did not respond the first time, or the second. On the third, Amanda appeared alongside me and just said, "Answer it. You need to close this cycle." "Hello," I said in the most bland tone possible. "Mel, it's me." His voice sounded exhausted and defeated. "Can I talk to you in person?" I considered hanging up, but Amanda was correct. There was something that had to be expressed. We agreed to meet at a neutral cafe, far from any places that evoked memories. When I arrived, he was already present. The hair is disheveled. Deep black rings. He appeared to have aged in only a few months. "Thank you for coming," he murmured, not looking me in the eye. "What do you want, Amanda?" He sighed heavily. "I wanted to apologize." "Really? And explain." "Explain what? That you were holding hands with my sister 3 weeks before our wedding?" "It wasn't like that," he muttered. "She came to me when you were sick. Said she needed to talk about something important. About you. That there were things from your past I needed to know before marrying you." I felt a knot in my stomach. Typical Natalie. "And you believed her? She brought evidence? Or at least things that seemed like evidence. Said you had destroyed some girl's life in high school. That you were vindictive, manipulative. She revealed old talks that were taken out of context." He eventually looked at me. I got confused. Scared. "And that's why you went to bed with her?" "No." He desperately shook his head. "She said she had been in love with me since we met. That she just hadn't said anything because she respected you. That if I canceled the wedding, she would be there for me. I was drinking. I was confused with everything she had told me about you." "Amanda," I interrupted. "None of that justifies what you did." "I know." Tears sprang in his eyes. 5 minutes after you left, I understood. I understood that she had manipulated me. That all of it was lies, that I had destroyed the best thing in my life because of her. I stayed silent for a long time. You know what hurts me most, Amanda? It's not even what you did. It's that you didn't trust me. In 2 years together, you believed her words more than who I really was. He lowers his head. I tried calling you afterward 1,000 times. I went to your house, but you were never there. Until I saw the photos with him, and I understood it was too late. It was too late the moment you put your hand into her hair, I said, rising up. But thank you for explaining. It helps me be sure I made the right choice. He gazed at me one last time. Are you happy with him? I grinned for the first time in the entire talk. Happier than I imagined I could be. And I went without bitterness, knowing that certain doors must be closed before others can fully open. The conversation with my family was more difficult. It took 3 months before my mother called and asked us to speak. She recommended we have lunch together to figure things out. I encountered a different woman who was older and more exhausted. The wrinkles around her eyes appeared deeper. How are you? She inquired hesitantly. Good, Mom. Very good. And Amanda? He's good too. We're good. She nodded uneasily and fidgeted with her napkin. I need to apologize to you, she ended by stating, for all the years that I didn't see clearly. I felt my chest tightening. Mom. No. Let me talk. She stared into my eyes for the first time. I always knew Natalie was difficult. But I thought if I gave her more attention, if I protected her more, she would change. And in the process, I neglected you. I left you to deal with the consequences of her problems alone. Tears began to pour down my cheek. After you confronted us that day, I started putting the pieces together. The friends Natalie lost, the boyfriends who disappeared, the stories that never added up. And I realized that you two told me very different versions of the same story. And I always chose to believe hers. Why? I inquired, my voice hoarse. Because she cried louder, my mother explained, her voice breaking. Because you always seemed stronger, more capable of taking care of yourself, and I confused strength with not needing support. We sat silently for a few minutes. And now? I asked. How is Natalie? She moved to another state. She's in therapy. Said she needs to start over, away from all this. My mother paused. She asked me to tell you that she knows she was wrong. But she can't apologize to you yet. And I can't forgive yet, I admitted honestly. Maybe someday. But not now. I understand. She extended her hand across the table. Can I try to be a better mother to you? I held her hand. We can try to be a better family. But it will take time. She grinned through tears. I have time. A few weeks later, my father arrived at my house unexpectedly with a bunch of flowers and the expression of someone who didn't know what to say. Can I come in? He said timidly. Of course, Dad. Amanda was in the kitchen and respectfully welcomed my father before moving back to give us space to talk. I like him, my father remarked simply. Seems like a good man. He is. I came here because your mother said you two talked. And I realized I never apologized to you. My father was never one to say much, so this startled me. I always knew Natalie was problematic, he told me, but I thought it wasn't my problem, that it was women's business, that your mother would solve it. But in the end, you both suffered, and you especially. Dad. No, daughter. Let me finish. He sat at the edge of the sofa. I failed as a father. I failed to protect you. I failed to educate her. And I failed to teach you both that sisters should support each other, not destroy each other. I felt a lump in my throat. Your mother told me about Amanda and what she did to you. He shook his head. If it were me, I would never forgive. But you found a way to transform all that pain into something good, and I'm proud of that. I'm proud of you. They were the words I'd longed my entire life to hear. Thank you, Dad. Do you think there's still time for me to be a better father? I smiled, even as my tears welled up. There's always time. That night, I told Amanda everything. He listened in quiet, only holding my hand. How do you feel? He inquired after I finished. Free, I said, startled at my own response. For the first time? Truly free. And about Natalie? I thought for a moment. I hope she finds her peace away from me. But I hope she finds it. He grinned and kissed my forehead. You're incredible. You know that? We're incredible, I clarified. Us. And it was true. Because in the end, it wasn't simply about defeating Natalie or exacting revenge on her. It was about realizing that I deserved to be loved correctly. Defended. Respected. It was about realizing that family isn't simply who you were born with, but who decides to stick by your side. It was about learning that, in order to discover the love of your life, you must first quit accepting crumbs from those who have never respected you. And today, when I woke up next to Amanda, with the dog lying at our feet, I realized all the conflicts had been worthwhile because they had got me here. To him. To us. To peace. My brother told me not to show up unless I was useful. So I showed up with proof. He forged my signature for a $600,000 loan. My brother texted, "Don't show up unless you've done something useful before Christmas." On the same day, my parents asked me to cover his loan. I sent 1 cent along with the comment, "Good luck, champ." A week later, he invited me to a peace dinner, stating, "Family should stick together." They all remained silent as I opened my luggage. The bank had just informed me that I had been listed on a 6-figure loan related to his new home. I said nothing, but handed a folder across the table and added, "I assumed you'd want a copy." I stared at the message for a whole minute, attempting to understand it in only 10 words, but it felt like a slap. No context, just a passive-aggressive command disguised as brotherly advice. That same day, as I was still half laughing and half reeling from his audacity, my phone rang again. This time, it was Mom. I didn't have to open the text to feel the change in my chest. I recognized that tone, but we need to speak softly before guilt-tripping you. Her message stated, "Sweetheart, your brother's mortgage payment is due. He is stressed. Can you cover this month until he gets back on his feet?" I slumped back in my chair and stared at my cold cup of coffee. My brother Ansel, the golden child who always finds a way to avoid responsibility, was once again in need. And once again, it was up to me to assist. He had just purchased a new home 2 months earlier. Flashy, pricey, and far above his means. I knew it, as did our parents, and hey, even Ansel knew it. But he wanted to brag, to prove he was doing better than me. I accessed my banking app, scrolled down to my emergency fund account, and instead of sending him the $2,100 they had hinted at, I transferred exactly 1 penny with the comment, "Good luck, champ." The silence that followed was delightful. No phone calls, angry texts, nothing. A week later, Ansel issued an invitation to a peace dinner. He said he wanted to make things right before Christmas. The family should keep together. My parents shared the sentiment. Mom even utilized her forgiveness to provide the ultimate gift of the season. I did not respond right away. I needed to see how far this performance could go. So I showed up. The house was completely decked out with twinkling lights, candles, and Christmas platters. When I stepped in, everyone was already sitting, and I was holding my old leather satchel, which I had never taken to family dinners. Ansel opened the door himself. "Hey man, glad you came." His grin was wide, as if he'd already chosen how this night would finish, with a reconciliation scene for the family highlight reel. We sat. Small chat and uneasy smiles. Dad clinked a drink and made a statement about unity. I waited. Then, just as the turkey struck the table, I took the folder from my backpack. Cream-colored, thick, and silent. "I figured you'd want a copy," I explained, sliding it over the table. They all stared at it, as if it was about to explode. It did not. However, the goods inside were a different story. I didn't have to explain what the folder was. The bank's fraud department emblem was prominently displayed on the first page. This is my name. My signature, but it wasn't mine. A 6-figure loan I never applied for, with the address linked to the mortgage? Ansel's new home. The quiet struck like a bomb. Even Ansel's twins stopped squirming. My father reached for his glasses, trembling, and opened the folder as if he didn't already know what was inside. Ansel's smile faltered. "Wait, what is this?" "Oh, I think you know," I answered, as cool as ice. My mother gasped as she flipped over the pages. "This must be a mistake. There's no way. Ansel, tell him this isn't." But Ansel didn't say anything. He was staring at the papers, blinking as if he was attempting to turn them into something else. "This is a bank notification," I explained. "Apparently I co-signed on your mortgage, except I didn't." Dad looked up. "That can't be. You must have signed something. Maybe you just forgot." I laughed. Forgot applying for a loan I never needed? Forgot signing away 6 figures in debt for a house I'd never live in? "Let me guess," I said, concentrating on Ansel. You used one of those old power of attorney documents Mom made me sign when she had her surgery. The one that was supposed to be temporary. The one you just happened to have a copy of. Ansel's mouth opened. Closed. It was going to be temporary. I just needed help qualifying. The bank was being impossible and I thought. You thought I wouldn't notice? He leaned forwards, frantic now. I was going to fix it. I just needed to get approved. Once I refinanced, it was going to be in my name alone. I swear. My signature was used without consent on official documents, I responded with a smile. That was when Dad slapped his hand against the table. Stop it, both of you. His voice sounded like thunder. This is Christmas. I don't care what happened. We're not going to do this here. Right, I answered. Because we never do it here. We don't talk about how Ansel has been leeching off me since we were teenagers. We don't talk about how you all act like I'm some Scrooge because I won't bankroll his every bad decision. My mom's lips were trembling. That's not fair. Isn't it? I countered. Let me take you on a little walk down memory lane. I ticked them off with my fingertips. Freshman year of college I dropped out because you asked me to help Ansel pay off his car loan after he wrecked the one you bought him. 2 years later, I co-signed for his community college. He dropped out in a semester and left me with the debt. Then the time he got evicted, who paid for that deposit? Who gave him a job at their company, only for him to steal from petty cash? Dad appeared to want to talk, but I did not give him the opportunity. And through all of it, you kept saying the same thing, he's your brother, he's just figuring it out, be patient. Well, guess what? He's 34 now. How much longer does he get to figure it out on my dime? Don't act like you're so perfect, Ansel says abruptly, his voice rising. You always thought you were superior to everyone since you had your act together and did not make mistakes. I turned to face him. I don't think I'm better. I just stopped expecting someone else to clean up after me. You don't understand pressure, Ansel retorted. I had to show I could build something too. I needed this house. I needed to prove I wasn't just some loser. What you did may be considered fraudulent. No, I mean. He ran his hand through his hair. It's not like that. My mother attempted to grasp for my hand. We can fix this. Let's not ruin the holiday. Ruin it? I laughed cruelly. The holiday was already ruined the moment you all sat here pretending like nothing happened, like he didn't ask me for money right after Ansel told me not to come unless I was useful. Dad's jaws tightened. He didn't mean it like that. He was stressed. He meant it exactly like that, I said. And so did I when I sent him a penny. I turned to Ansel. You have 30 days to remove my name from that loan. I've already contacted a lawyer and the bank. If you don't act, I will, and you leave me no choice but to act legally. I grabbed the folder, placed it back into my backpack, and proceeded to the door. Nobody stopped me. Nobody said a thing. And thus Christmas came to an end early. I didn't expect it to go this far. At first I truly believed I could simply walk away and let them choke on their own guilt, if they had any. But you don't grow up in a family like mine without learning the patterns. Because 2 days later the calls began. First, it was, Mom. Honey, can we talk? Your brother's going through a lot right now. Then, Dad. I think we need to sit down like men and sort this out. Then Ansel. He had the guts to send me a video message of himself sitting in his half-decorated living room, phony tears in his eyes, drinking a glass of wine as if he were in a sad movie. Look, man, I made a mistake. I panicked. I thought. You'd never say yes if I asked, and the bank was breathing down my neck. I was desperate. But it's still me, your brother. You'd really report me over this? I looked at the screen in bewilderment. Is this a mistake? You don't unintentionally fill out a multi-page mortgage application in another person's name and forge their signature. You don't mistakenly put your own family member in 6 figures of debt. He was performing his typical part as Ansel, the misunderstood idealist. The guy who always had good intentions but never quite succeeded. And everyone always let him off. Except for me. Not anymore. So I replied with my own video. Calm. Director. There are no theatrics. I've already filed the legal issue report with the bank. They're opening a formal investigation. I've submitted handwriting samples, a timeline, and email evidence. You have 10 days to remove my name. After that I escalated it legally. No more metaphors. No more let's talk about it. Just facts. The situation became more serious at that point. They showed up at my apartment the following night. I heard a beating on the door before I switched off the television. I looked through the peephole and there they were. Ansel, Mom, and Dad. I didn't open the door, so Dad shouted through it. This isn't the way a family handles things. That part made me laugh aloud. I actually had to cover my mouth. Mom's voice was next. Please, sweetie, we can't let this destroy the family. Then Ansel responded. You're really going to ruin my life over some paperwork. You're not perfect either, you know. That did it. I opened the door. The three of them appeared to have just been caught stealing from a church donation box. I said nothing at first. I just stood in the hallway, cold air from outdoors stroking over my legs. I finally spoke. You already did destroy the family. I'm just acknowledging it. Dad stepped forward. Son, be reasonable. You want reasonable? I inquired. Let's talk about reasonable things. I took out my phone, tapped it a couple times, then held it up. This is the recording of Ansel asking me not to show up unless I'd done something useful. Want to hear it again? Their faces moved, all three. And this, I added, switching to another app, is the email I received from the bank confirming the forgery. It's admissible. Ansel was sweating now. Come on, man, we're brothers. I stared him in the eyes. Brothers don't steal from each other. Brothers don't lie. Brothers don't pull each other into financial messes like this and then try to make it sound like a misunderstanding. He opened his lips to speak, but I silenced him. You're going to walk to your car right now. You need to. Inform the bank about the issue and take steps to fix it. You're going to have them remove my name, and if I don't get a signed notarized release form within 10 days, I go to the police. Mom gave a gasp. You wouldn't. He's your brother. Oh, I would. I'd sleep like a baby. You'll break this family, she sobbed. I tilted my head. There's nothing left to break. You just don't like seeing it shattered. And then I made the ultimate move. I reached into the envelope affixed to my doorframe and handed them a copy of my lawyer's certified notice suing Ansel for major mistakes and damages, including emotional anguish. You made adult choices. Now it's time to take responsibility. They stood there, transfixed as statues. Then I closed and locked the door and proceeded to cook popcorn. That night, for the first time in years, I didn't grind my teeth. For the first time in years, my phone stopped ringing. No daily guilt trips from Mom. There are no gaslight voicemails from Dad regarding family values. Ansel sent no text messages with passive-aggressive emojis or poor spelling. Just silence. And let me tell you something. Stillness is addictive. At first I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. Perhaps the police would call. Perhaps the bank would engage in some legal maneuvering and ensnare me in red tape. But none of that occurred. What actually happened was that Ansel cracked on the 5th day after I sent the legal letter. I received a call, but it was not from him. He lacked the necessary courage. It came from his realtor. Apparently, Ansel panicked and listed the house for sale. She nicely asked if I would be willing to sign a release of interest to help speed up the transaction. I told her I'd be pleased as soon as Ansel completed the notarized documentation to remove me from the loan. Fair trade. Within 24 hours, I received a PDF that had been notarized, signed, and stamped. A clean break. I was out. But that was not the true victory. The true victory came when Dad arrived at my office. Yeah, he didn't phone or text, he just sauntered in one afternoon, as if he owned the place, and looked approximately 20 years older than I had seen him before. I was now in the middle of a customer meeting. My assistant attempted to stop him, but he pushed past and barged into the room. Son, we need to talk. The client blinked. Should I? I nodded. Take 5. Dad shut the door behind him and stared around my office as if it were an exotic world, as if he had suddenly learned his youngest son had accomplished something worthwhile. Didn't know you had this set up, he remarked, looking at the shelves. Looks professional. It is professional. He nodded, but did not sit down. Your mother's not doing well. Oh, there it was. The sympathetic angle. She's upset, he added. I think you've gone too far. We all do. I remained mute. He continued going. Ansel is talking about moving out of state. Says you've poisoned the family against him. I haven't spoken to a single relative about what happened, I said. If they're turning against him, that's his doing. Dad finally exhaled. He's still your brother. He crossed a serious line. He flinched. We raised you better than this, he stated softly. You used to be forgiving. I used to be weak. There's a difference. Once again, there is silence. Then he leaned forward. She cried, you know. Your mother. Real tears. I bet she did. After all, it's hard watching the family start standing up for myself. He looked up. I was tired. You're angry. I was. Now I'm free. He stood slowly. We were trying to hold things together. You were trying to hold me together so Ansel didn't have to carry anything. And then I finally spoke what I had been meaning to say for years. I'm not your insurance policy, not your second paycheck, not your plan B. I'm your son, and you treated me like a resource. He didn't respond. He just looked at me, as if he had seen a ghost. I'm not coming back, I explained. I'm done playing the good son. He went without saying anything further, and something inside of me breathed. Weeks have passed. My lawyer approved a non-disparagement provision to prevent Ansel from publicly posting sob stories on social media. The post he made about being betrayed by family disappeared overnight. I heard through the grapevine that the house sold just barely. The market had cooled. He suffered a loss. Then followed the messages. Aunt Faye says, I had no idea what he did to you. If you ever want to grab coffee, I'd love to catch up. My aunt responded, just know not everyone believed his version. I hope you're doing okay. Even my ex texted, took guts to do what you did. I never saw that strength in you before. I did not answer the majority of them, but I did grin. Because that's what happens when you stop playing the villain in someone else's redemption tale and begin crafting your own. I moved to a new location. Not far away, the same city, but with more light. Large windows. Clean the walls. There is no ghost from the past lurking in the corners. I purchased new furniture. Not second-hand. I have not borrowed from my parents. Not blessed with 1,000 strings attached. Mine. All of it. I began sleeping better. Eating healthier. My therapist even said that I appeared lighter. And here's the crazy part. I started mentoring a neighborhood kid. Smart, awkward, perhaps a touch overly eager to please. I was reminded of myself at that age. One afternoon after I completed working on his resume, he looked up and said, how do you get so good at boundaries? I laughed. I spent 30 years learning the hard way. But do you want to know the true full circle moment? Last week I received a wedding invitation. Not Ansel's God, however. It came from one of his ex-girlfriends. He ghosted a woman 3 years ago after she told him she was pregnant. It turns out that the kid was his. It turns out that she reared that child alone. She discovered me on LinkedIn. The message contained the following. You were always the decent one. Thank you for never treating people like tools. You probably don't remember it, but when I stayed for dinner that night, you did the dishes while he watched TV. That moment stuck with me. I wasn't sure what to say. So I didn't say anything. I sat there holding the card, letting the tranquility pour over me. Because the truth is, I won. Not with vengeance. Not while shouting. Not by burning bridges. But they walked away while still holding the matches. I used to believe that being the good one was the aim. Keep your head down. Help when asked. Do not complain. Do not question. Just on giving until someone expresses gratitude or you feel deserving. That falsehood ended the day I mailed Ansel a dime. I've spent the majority of my life carrying obligations I didn't create, paying for decisions I didn't make, and absorbing blame like an emotional sponge for a family that never inquired how I was doing. And for what? Respect? Love? Belonging? I received none of those. What I received was a fake mortgage application, a holiday guilt trip, and a place at a table where everyone knew I was being duped but said nothing. Not anymore. Not again. Something changed about a minute after I said no. It wasn't simply how people viewed me, it was in how I viewed myself. I stopped apologizing for having limitations. I stopped second-guessing my instincts. I stopped trying to rescue those who would abandon me to drown as soon as it became inconvenient. Something unusual happened. The weight is lifted. I literally lost 20 pounds in 3 months without trying. My shoulders have ceased aching. My jaw stopped clenching when I slept. It turns out that carrying a full family's dysfunction on your back is far heavier than it appears. I began rebuilding both financially and personally. The apartment is basic but peaceful. I chose each item within it with purpose. No hand-me-downs. There's no guilt furniture. Nothing was bought with blood money or bribes. I bought a tiny espresso machine because I enjoy coffee, not because someone told me I needed to cut back to pay for their bailout. I joined a boxing gym not to fight someone, but to remember what it is like to stand firm. People gradually began to show up with the correct ones. My neighbor invited me to dinner with his family. I felt awkward at first, waiting for some questions and angles. But there wasn't one. Simply delicious food and laughs. One of my coworkers gave me a Christmas card and remarked, "You've been different lately, lighter, happier. I hope it's permanent." I said, "Me too." My family went quiet for a spell. The calls began to trickle in. Mom began with her quiet voice, which she employs when she wants to pretend nothing has happened. She asked if I wanted to come to Easter brunch. I asked if Ansel would be there. She replied, "Of course." I replied, "Then I won't." Then Dad called. He said he missed me. They said the house felt empty without me. I asked if he missed me, or the version of me who never said no. He hung up. Ansel never called. But I learned through the grapevine that he moved in with a buddy once the house was sold. He created a podcast about repairing your life after betrayal. The irony almost killed me. Finally, they stopped calling. The silence became a blessing. But the true ending is the one that sticks with me the most. It was a random Wednesday. Rain is tapping on my balcony. I was reading when a letter came through my postal slot. There's no return address. I opened it. Inside, there was only one page. Typed. "You accomplished what I never could. You said no. You walked away. You showed the rest of us what was possible. Thank you." No name. But I recognized who it was. My cousin. Maybe it's my aunt. Even one of Ansel's exes. Someone still imprisoned in that poisoned orbit, witnessing my escape and realizing they, too, could. I gently folded the letter and placed it in the drawer where I preserve reminders of who I used to be. Then I poured myself a drink. Not to celebrate, but to remember. Because mending doesn't imply forgetting what they did to you. It is about no longer requiring them to admit it. It is about no longer begging for affection that should have been given unconditionally. It's about becoming the person you were born to be once you stop bleeding for everyone else. I used to believe that the worst thing that could happen was being cut off from my family. Now I see that not cutting the cord would have been the worst case scenario. Now I live the truth. And the fact is simple. I'm not their wallet. I'm not theirs at all. I belong to myself. And I'll never go back, not for money, peace or remorse. I closed the chapter without looking back. I noticed a sudden change in my husband's behavior. He went from being deeply depressed to overly calm and happy, which seemed off. We are going through a really tough time right now and he's been really depressed. Well, he was until 3 days ago when all of a sudden he's all calm, happy. Like a switch flipped and he's absurdly calm, as if he wasn't sad before. It sent my alarm bells ringing, but I chalked it up to him just trying to get over his emotions. We live 15 minutes from a big university where both of our children, 21 and 19, attend. They came home randomly yesterday and I was caught off guard. They said their father requested them to come over because he wanted to give them something. He proceeded to give them 2 boxes full of their childhood memories. Teddy bears, photo albums, old toys, etc. It was so odd because they are in college and one lives in a dorm and the other lives in a college apartment with friends. It would make more sense for that stuff to stay here at the house. But he seemed so insistent on giving them these relics from the past and seemed overly happy to do so. Today he stayed home from work. I work part-time and didn't have work today. He's been cleaning all day. He's always helped clean up, but today he's doing a deep clean, which is something he usually dreads doing. I'm worried. I don't know what this mood switch is and I don't even know what to search on Google. It seems like normal stuff, but I know him and this is definitely not normal, especially the suddenness. Does anyone know what could be happening? Has this happened to anybody else? Update, 1 day later. I want to thank everyone who commented. I only had 45 comments when I decided to talk to my husband and hadn't been on Reddit since, so coming on and seeing 300 plus comments is overwhelming. After reading those comments and seeing suicide mentioned so much, I got a knot in my stomach and researched behaviors of someone ready to commit, and sure enough it matched his. I got so mad at myself for being so ignorant to behaviors of mental health crises. I went to talk to him and told him I love him so much and that if he was planning to do something to himself that he didn't have to and that I'd help him with anything. I said much more in a more loving way. He then broke down crying. Guys, I've only seen this man cry once, and that was his father's funeral, and even that was just a few tears. This was more of a cry. Full-on breakdown. I held him and we both cried. He told me that he was broken and didn't feel like he could go on and that we'd be better off without him. I vehemently told him that he was absolutely wrong and that we'd be destroyed without him. We talked for hours and I asked for his permission to call his sister, who is the only person outside of our immediate family that he trusts fully. She came over and we all talked for a while. His sister and I convinced him to let us take him to the ER. Thank you guys for this advice. After the medical and mental evaluation, they concluded he was high risk and they kept him. That opened my eyes to how bad it was. That's pretty much it. They still have him and I'm at home. His sister offered to stay with me, but I told her to go home. She has her own family and I don't want to keep her from them. I don't know what to tell our kids or even I should tell them. I'm lost and worried and just want to help my husband. Comments. Comment 1. You are an absolutely amazing human and wife. Do not assume you should have known. Most of us never even think of suicide as a real thing until it's presented like this. You did the most absolutely right thing by noticing signs and reaching to us. I'm so freaking proud of you. I know it's a lot to carry. You will go through waves of emotion. Please consider popping into a counselor just to talk it out. You will want to be strong for him, but you are human too and this is heavy. Comment 2, very well written. I second this about a counselor or therapist. Although we have to be strong for them, sometimes it is hard to carry and there is nothing wrong with reaching out for any type of crutch during hard times. Comment 3, this post makes my day. I am so happy you got him help. You were able to do the thing that I wish I or someone else had been able to do for my friend. As for you children, you have to keep it age appropriate. With my 10-year-old I tell them my friend was sick and he died and I miss him. With my wife, she knows the whole story. Truth is good for any relationship. Secrets kill. If your kids are older, tell them their dad is struggling with his mental health and you're getting him help. OOP. Our kids are in college so I can be more blunt about it. I'm more worried about if my husband wants them to know, you know? I wouldn't want to divulge this info to them if he didn't want to. Maybe I'm overthinking. My mind is all over the place currently. Comment 4, I would not. He's trusted you, don't abuse that trust right now. It's delicate. He gave you permission for his sister. Let the dust settle right now. Talk to a counselor, tell them together if needed later. But this is a delicate time right now with your husband and his trust in the world. Ope. This is how I'm learning. This is such a vulnerable time for him. I don't want to let them know until I know he's okay with it. I found out my daughter wasn't mine, and that my wife had an affair with my brother for 8 years. They stole $200,000 and planned to run away. I'm writing because I still can't believe what occurred. It all began like any other month. My buddies, Howard, Jeremy, Kyle, David, John, and I, George, have known each other since we were children. We're all in our late 30s and early 40s now. We aim to meet up once a month at my beach property. It's nothing fancy, just a comfy 2-story home that's a little weathered, but it smells like the beach, which I adore. We have an old surfboard hanging on the wall in the living room. We were all into surfing back in the day. Anyway, we all have our belongings. Howard is Mr. Organized, and everything has to be just right. He will mend any picture frame that is even a millimeter off. Jeremy, he is the joker. His jokes can be a little bit harsh at times, but he's a wonderful guy at heart. He has a scar on his arm from a fight he got into years ago, but he never talks about it. Kyle is the quiet one. He's an architect who creates stunning buildings. According to my understanding, he had a difficult upbringing, yet he grew up to be okay. David is ex-military and doesn't say much about his time in duty, but you can tell he's seen a lot. He is constructed like a brick wall. John always seemed to have it all. He's a successful lawyer who always dresses nicely and drives a luxury automobile. You know the type. Our get-togethers are rather predictable. We have an old playlist of music from our college years that we always play. Howard is in control of the grill, it's his nice grill, and no one else is permitted to use it. He is quite picky about his grilling. We normally just hang around, eat, drink some beer, and catch up. Howard was particularly worked up this month. He takes out his phone and shows us a photo of his son, Alan. In the picture, Alan is scowling and appears to be very angry. Howard claims the school principal called him. Apparently, Alan was behaving up, being impolite, not listening to teachers, and his grades were sliding. Howard was beside himself. He continued screaming, "I don't even know who this kid is anymore." He was truly devastated and enraged. We all tried to give counsel, the normal kids go through phases type of thing. Then Jeremy, being Jeremy, cracked a joke. He glanced directly at Howard and said something like, "Maybe he's not yours, man." It was a bad joke, especially given Howard's displeasure. I believe we all squirmed slightly, but it was exacerbated by the fact that he shouted it straight to Howard. Kyle then asked, in his typical quiet tone, "Why don't you all just get a DNA test? Clear the air." He stated it nonchalantly, as if he were recommending we order pizza. Initially, we all laughed it off. It appeared silly, but the more we joked about it, the more we thought, well, why not? The next day, there we were, 6 mature men stepping into a paternity testing clinic. I had to explain to the receptionist why everyone needed tests. It was very embarrassing. I attempted to make light of it, but she just gave me a blank expression. To make matters worse, Howard's brother, Harold, and his 2 nephews were with us. The boys continued to ask questions. "Why are we here, Uncle George? What are they going to do?" It was embarrassing. And, of course, with all of our families present, it evolved into a hugely awkward scene. People were clearly staring. We all took the swabs, paid the cost, and agreed to meet at John's apartment the next week to receive the findings. John's place is the polar opposite of my beach house. It's everything modern, minimalist, and spotless, almost too beautiful, as if nobody lives there. We sat around, attempting to make light talk, but everyone was plainly on edge. Howard took his findings first, as he was the one who initiated everything. He'd been putting on a brave face, but we all knew he was extremely concerned about Alan. The joke Jeremy told had gone under his skin more than he cared to admit. He ripped open the packet, and I watched his expression change from one of fear to one of sheer relief. 99.99%, he exhaled, leaning back into his chair. Alan was his. He even smiled a little, raking his hands through his hair and muttering about how he was going to ground that youngster for a month for causing him such stress. The other findings were as expected, but we kept looking at John, waiting for him to say something. He was unusually quiet, and he was clearly drinking more than he normally did. He was still standing there, and when he finally said, "Jenna isn't mine?" he pushed the paper across the table, his hand shaking so violently that he nearly knocked over his beverage. What made things worse was how John just stood there, staring at nothing, as if he was trying to make sense of figures that couldn't be real. He kept whispering, 25.0%, like a broken record. In some ways, everything went downhill from there. Howard, in shock, knocked over a glass, which smashed on the floor. Jeremy, who had made the initial joke, appeared to want the earth to swallow him whole. Kyle simply closed his eyes, as if he were trying to block everything out. David looked like he was about to punch something. And me? I felt a surge of sickness, relief that my children were mine, and anguish for John. It was simply dreadful. The whole affair seemed strange. We sat for hours. The aftermath was a mess. John's wife, Alicia, went on the offense first. She stormed into John's office. I wasn't there, but I heard about it via John. She was yelling at him, calling him a liar, and making a big deal in front of his coworkers. It was very embarrassing for him. Then she attempted to persuade my wife, Maria, to her side. She came over to our house crying, attempting to create a story about John misinterpreting everything and how it was all a big mistake. However, Maria is quite sharp. She saw through Alicia's ruse quite immediately. Alicia often changed her story, contradicting herself. Maria later told me that she had gotten a horrible sense from her. Alicia's next tactic was to phone Kyle late at night. She was sobbing and virtually asking him to help her, claiming John was ruining her life. Kyle, being the nice soul he is, listened to her for a time, but made no promises. He informed me about it the next day, and we were all beginning to see how manipulative Alicia was. The reality emerged gradually at first. Alicia stated that her romance with John's brother, Stephen, was a one-time occurrence, a moment of weakness. John naturally did not believe her. He performed some research, possibly even engaged a private investigator. He wouldn't tell for certain. He discovered that the relationship was far longer and more involved than Alicia had previously admitted. The ultimate encounter occurred at their home. I was not present, but John informed us about it afterward. Alicia eventually admitted everything. The romance began before their wedding and had continued on and off for years. She also stated that Stephen had major financial issues, and she had been covertly providing him money, John's money. And things got worse. It was more than simply a casual flirtation. They had been meeting in hotels while John worked late, believing he was providing for his family. They even used John's automobile occasionally. They celebrated Jenna's birthday like a couple, snapping photos and pretending to be joyful. Days before John's family gathering, Stephen had been sending Jenna costly gifts that John could never afford, all purchased with money that had been essentially stolen from him. It appeared that he was attempting to buy Jenna's adoration. Is this the lowest blow of all? She would tell John she was working late when, in fact, she was out with Stephen. The financial side of things was completely out of control. These family loans that Alicia had been handing Stephen were massive. He'd squandered his money on gambling, lousy investments, and frivolous purchases like a nice watch and sports vehicle. He stated that these were business costs. Alicia had even forged John's signature on a few loan paperwork. They made bogus invoices and receipts to hide their tracks. John discovered emails between them in which they discussed leaving their husbands and running away together. Everything was laid out in black and white. When everything started spilling out, Alicia began hurriedly phoning everyone, attempting to mitigate the damage. She called me, my wife, and even contacted my parents. It was pathetic. The entire event culminated during Jenna's birthday celebration. It was a spectacular event at a nice restaurant. Everyone was pretending to be joyful. Stephen was present, acting smug and touchy-feely with Alicia. It made John obviously angry. He kept clenching and unclenching his hands while standing near the exit, as if waiting for Stephen to flee. Then, during the toasts, Stephen mustered the courage to stand up and thank John for being such a wonderful brother and provider. He understood it was all a deception. He handed Jenna a very expensive gift, most likely purchased using John's money. He also began bragging to some of the other guests about his own financial triumphs, making John look awful by contrast. That was the breaking moment. John stepped up, took the DNA test results from his pocket, and displayed them for everybody to see. He stated unequivocally, 25.0% probability. He then proceeded to deliver this brief, furious speech, detailing everything, Alicia and Stephen's affair, the falsehoods, and the stolen money. He even showed everyone printed out images of their emails and photos from when they were planning their future together. He made certain that everyone knew about the watch, the car, the extravagant parties, and the fictitious business trip to a tropical island. John's mother-in-law gasped and fainted. His father-in-law attempted to punch John, but fortunately, some other guests pulled him back. Stephen attempted to sneak out the back, but John's father, who, like David, is an ex-military, saw him and knocked him down. It was not pretty. Some individuals attempted to assist, while others simply stood there, mouths agape, watching the entire incident happen. The police were summoned, but they did not take any action. They said it was a domestic disagreement. I later learned that someone had recorded the entire thing on their phone and posted it online. It was not any of us. The consequences were quick and terrible. John's dad was outraged. He refused to speak with Stephen and proceeded to Stephen's flat, where his wife also lived. He grabbed all of Stephen's stuff and put them outside the apartment owned by Stephen and John's father. He subsequently wrote a note to the entire family, stating that he no longer regarded Stephen as son. He did, however, talk with John. He informed him he was disappointed with how things turned out, but he still loved him. Stephen's wife, Kelly, had a different narrative. She did more than just yell. She took action. She promptly filed for divorce and locked all of their joint accounts, barring Stephen from receiving any additional funds. She retained a lawyer and did not stop there. She went to John's house, confronted Alicia, yelled at her, and even smacked her in the face while pulling large chunks of her hair off. I do not condone violence, but I cannot say I blamed her. Kelly eventually began treatment to try to overcome the trauma. John, on the other hand, withdrew. He went to one of his beach houses, not mine, but it wasn't as comfortable for him as it had been previously. It seemed like a prison. He would not answer the phone. He would not see anyone. He ordered meals online and stared at the ocean for hours. He later informed me that he had dreams about the DNA test and the overall affair. He really considered selling the property and committing suicide somewhere in a distant wilderness, but he couldn't bring himself to do so, too many memories. He began drinking extensively to numb the ache. He stopped shaving and changing his clothes. He simply gave up. Meanwhile, Alicia and Stephen were residing at John's house. Apparently, Stephen moved in after getting booted out of his residence. They acted as if nothing had happened. They were seen going on shopping sprees, purchasing pricey clothing and accessories. They were even plotting their escape, working out how to get away from the disaster they had created. It was horrible. They ordered pricey takeout every night while John struggled to pay his debts. They had noisy parties, which bothered the neighbors. Alicia even began remodeling Jenna's room despite knowing she might have to leave at any time. And Stephen, the jackass, began parking his automobiles in John's driveway. John started experiencing panic attacks. Just seeing Alicia and Stephen together triggered them. He stopped caring for himself. He wasn't showering or eating properly. One day, he accidentally smashed a framed photo of Jenna. He wounded his palm badly on the broken glass, but he didn't appear to notice. That's when we, his pals, realized we needed to act. We held a meeting at my residence. Howard brought all of the bank statements and, with John's assistance, the fake documents. He didn't simply show us the documents, he hurled them on the table, scattering them around. He was furious. Jeremy claimed he wanted to bash Stephen up. David, given his military background, even joked about making them disappear. I believe he was joking anyway. Kyle, who is usually so cool and controlled, was visibly angry. We spent hours discussing, fighting, and attempting to figure out what to do. We argued the legality and morality of it all. Howard completed some research, including landlord-tenant legislation and eviction procedures. He came up with an idea. Jeremy would be the muscle, so to speak. David devised a backup plan in case something went wrong. We even developed a code word, pineapple, to indicate that the job had been completed. I was just sitting there, Pikachu-faced, listening to everything. The next step was to get John out of the way and avoid unintentionally turning up until we finished what we were going to do. We didn't simply invite him over for a cookout since it would have been too suspicious. Kyle feigned to seek John's legal counsel on a serious property matter. Given John's occupation, it was a valid reason. We kept John engaged with food and alcohol while also keeping the conversation going, distracting him from what was truly going on. Meanwhile, the rest of us visited John's residence. The confrontation was fierce. Alicia instantly began playing the victim, crying and claiming we had no right to be there. Stephen attempted to seem strong, but you could see fear in his eyes. We took pictures and films of everything, documenting the chaos and the fancy stuff they purchased with John's money. We discovered additional evidence, including images of them on secret travels and documentation indicating that they intended to buy a property together. We didn't just neatly pack their possessions when we were clearing them out. We hurled them out the window, resulting in a massive pile of garments, shoes, and whatever else we could find. Jeremy was raving at Stephen, calling him every term in the book and threatening him if he ever approached John or Jenna again. I discovered a stockpile of valuable items that Alicia had been hiding. I flung it at her feet, saying, "Here's your blood money." Alicia began weeping hysterically, yelling, and threatening to call the police. Jeremy stepped in and gently explained her that the house was exclusively in John's name, that they had signed a prenuptial agreement before getting married, and that she had no legal right to be there. Howard finally got in Stephen's face, forcing him up against the garage door and calling him a lowlife. Kyle and John waited at my beach house. I sent him the word pineapple. Finally, he informed John that it was time to return him to his true home. Kyle described John as a jumble of emotions, including rage, relief, anxiety, and remorse. He was driving wildly, speeding, slowing, and then speeding up again. He continued to murmur to himself, revisiting the last 8 years of his life in his thoughts, attempting to make sense of it all. He was scared of what this could do to Jenna. When they arrived at the house, it was quite the sight. Alicia and Stephen's belongings, including clothing, furniture, and golf equipment, were strewn around the front lawn. The neighbors were outside, watching the entire event. It felt like a yard sale from hell. Alicia stood there, red-faced and enraged, yelling at John. She was blaming him for everything, claiming he was wrecking her life and was a horrible guy. Stephen stood behind her, gazing down at the ground, as if humiliated. He didn't say anything. John did not even recognize them. He strolled right by them, as if they were invisible. He went into the home. It was disturbingly silent. Of course, the furniture remained, but everything else, all the small personal touches that made it their home, had vanished. It was like coming into a set model home, not the one he'd shared with his family for years. He moved from room to room, slowly taking everything in. The emptiness was the worst part. He told me later that was when it hit him. They were genuinely gone. While the turmoil erupted at John's house that day, Jenna was safe at her best friend's house for a playdate. Her friend's mother was one of the few parents at Jenna's school who saw through Alicia's act and was always sympathetic to John. She had planned this playdate knowing what was going to happen at the house, because we had told her about it. She returned perplexed. John needed to explain everything. "Is Uncle Stephen my true father?" she asked. John felt nauseous. Then she asked, "Don't you love me anymore?" He broke down, telling her that nothing could ever change his feelings for her. But then Alicia returned, seized Jenna by force, and we couldn't stop her. John spent the first night alone. The next day, he told us he had ended up sitting on Jenna's bed, marveling at her toys and drawings. It was one of the most challenging things he'd ever done. He spent the following few weeks in his daughter's room, and it was a blur. John wasn't doing well. He had both good and bad days. I believe that seeing a therapist helped him. He attempted to keep himself busy by focusing on his work. He began playing his guitar again, which he hadn't done in years. He even went surfing a few times, hoping to relive part of his former life. We, his pals, supported him every step of the way. We frequently checked on him, made sure he was eating, and hauled him out of the home when necessary. The biggest worry that troubled John, the one he couldn't shake, was, what does Jenna think of me now? He was consumed by the dread that she blamed him, that she believed he had abandoned her. He kept wondering, does she believe I abandoned her? Will she ever forgive me for what occurred? He couldn't ask her directly just yet. He had missed her school dance presentation, which she had been practicing for months. He felt bad about it, but he didn't know how to confront her or explain why he hadn't been there. The guilt was crushing. He simply wanted to cuddle his little baby and tell her everything was fine, but but he wasn't sure whether it was. He wasn't sure if he'd be okay. However, John could not have fought this fight alone. None of us could have handled something like this on our own, and it wasn't only the guys who rallied around John. Our spouses were also great. They observed how much John was hurting and stepped up big time. They didn't just say they were sorry, they did something. They confronted Alicia immediately. They made it clear to her that they understood exactly what she had done and would not allow her get away with it. They posed a formidable challenge. They also cared for John. They put together a care box for him, complete with his favorite snacks, novels, and a handwritten note from each of them expressing their support. They took turns fixing him dinner, ensuring that he ate something other than takeaway. They made sure he wasn't alone by inviting him to family gatherings and movie nights, anything to lift his spirits. They treated him like family because that is who he was. I don't think John expected this kind of support, and it made a significant difference. It demonstrated that he was not alone in this fight. We, his pals, had also been quietly preparing. We had been combining our money since we knew John would need an excellent counsel. We had done our research and located someone who specialized in high-conflict divorce and custody situations. This lawyer was known for winning and obtaining outcomes. We presented John with a retainer fee, explaining that we were all in this together. John hesitated at first. He was frightened of making matters worse for Jenna. He was frightened of losing her entirely. He kept saying, "What if I fight this and lose? What if she ends up hating me even more?" We understood his concerns, but we refused to give up. We reminded him that being a father was about love, being present for your child, and providing a secure and nurturing environment. We told him that he needed to choose to be Jenna's father every day, no matter what. We persuaded him that he deserved to be in her life, and she deserved to be with him. Eventually, John consented. He was still afraid, but also determined. He was prepared to fight for Jenna. He wanted the judge to understand the truth about Alicia and Stephen, including their falsehoods, manipulation, and greed. He wished to protect Jenna from them. The divorce procedure was a nightmare for John. The lawyer we hired predicted it would take 6 to 8 months, but it ended up taking about 18 months. Alicia battled him every step of the way. She opposed everything, including the asset distribution and custody arrangements, and even attempted to claim that the house was partially hers. It was not. John acquired it from his grandma before they got married. She dragged out every single meeting, misscheduled appointments, and repeatedly requested paperwork extensions. Every time we thought it was nearly done, Alicia threw another wrench in the works. She sought to imply John was an unfit parent because he worked too much. Rich, coming from someone who has been sneaking around with his sibling. She even attempted to use his drinking against him, despite the fact that he had only recently begun drinking frequently after learning of her betrayal. But when John's lawyer showed all of the fake documents to the court, things became serious quickly. Alicia falsified John's signature on at least 10 distinct loan documents totaling more than $200,000. The judge saw this as more than just a divorce issue. It was outright fraud. They discovered evidence that she had been moving money to Stephen for years, using fictitious business invoices to conceal their activities. The district attorney became involved after John's lawyer provided the material. Alicia eventually faced criminal accusations for fraud and forgery. She attempted to imply that Stephen had pressed her into it. She ultimately agreed to a plea deal that included 3 years of probation, obligatory financial counseling, and repayment of every dime she had stolen. The judge also limited her visitation rights with Jenna to every other weekend, during daylight hours. There were no overnight stays or trips out of state for Jenna, and all visits were overseen by a court-appointed guardian. It was harsh, yet considering what she'd done, she got off easy. Stephen had less luck with the court system than Alicia. When the proof of financial fraud was revealed, he was charged with faking documents and stealing John's money, just like she was. But the judge didn't buy his excuses. Stephen was sentenced to 2 years in jail, while Alicia received probation. He, like Alicia, had to repay all they'd stolen, but being in jail prevented him from doing so immediately away. Stephen and Alicia's relationship came apart dramatically when they no longer had John's money to play with and were instead arrested. Alicia began blaming Stephen for everything, claiming he had deceived her. Stephen couldn't take being broke. They had a massive fight in court, yelling about how they had ruined each other's lives. After 16 months of misery, John finally got divorced. We went out to celebrate on the day it was finalized. John did not say anything that night. He just sat there, looking fatigued and relieved. It was over. He might now begin rebuilding his life. Jenna, that's the bit that tears my heart the most, was struggling with things for a while. Who would not? A therapist helped her comprehend that Stephen was her biological father, But John was still her father. John told me about a conversation they had where Jenna questioned if she could still call him dad. He claimed he cried for an hour after that. She didn't want much to do with Stephen, which astonished everyone but John. She rapidly realized that Stephen had contributed to the harm of her father, the only real father she had ever known. Stephen tried to give her expensive gifts during supervised visits, but she refused them. Smart youngster. She told the court-appointed supervisor that she did not want to spend any time with Stephen at all. Life gradually returned to a new normal. We had one more picnic at my beach property, which served as a sort of celebration. John thanked us for all we had done. He made a self-deprecating joke, indicating that he was finally recuperating. He was playing with the youngsters, throwing them in the air and making them giggle. It was evident how much he enjoyed being a father. He looked at us and said, "You guys are my family." And he meant it. We were more than just friends. We were brothers, pulled together by this strange, incredible event. If there is a moral to the story, it is that good friends will be there for you no matter what happens. Even if your life collapses, they will be there to assist you pick up the pieces. I took legal action against my sister-in-law after she tampered with my prenatal medication because I refused to name my baby after her ex-husband. My husband Luke, 29M, and I, 29F, are expecting our first child. After years of struggle with infertility, we were overjoyed to learn that I was pregnant. However, what should have been a happy occasion turned into a nightmare because of my sister-in-law, Lila, 34F, who had a terrible history, including a painful divorce after having an affair with her ex-husband's brother. While her ex-husband Joe moved on, Lila stayed unmarried, holding on to the concept of him as a member of the family despite the affair. Lila looked delighted and wanted to be a part of my pregnancy. Initially, I assumed she was simply delighted to be an aunt, but her pleasure quickly took an unusual turn. She continued offering baby names, but they were all variations of Joe's. Despite my uneasiness, I attempted to explain to her that Luke and I had previously decided not to name our kid after anyone in the family. I wanted something unique and interesting. Lila was hurt, but I assumed she'd understand. However, she continued to send us baby name lists related to Joe, believing that it would honor the family and be meaningful to them. I set boundaries, but she did not follow them. Then things took a worrying turn. I had a little pregnancy concern and was provided medicine. Lila volunteered to pick it up for me, and I agreed. The next day, after taking the prescription she provided, I felt dizzy and sick. I ended up in the emergency room, where doctors determined that the medication I was given was not what I had been prescribed. It was a considerably higher and riskier dosage for pregnancy. Initially, I assumed it was a pharmacy error, but my suspicions rose as Lila was the one who received the pills. I called her to see whether she had noticed anything unusual. Her response astonished me. She laughed at first, saying she chose a higher amount on her own because she wanted me to pay for not naming my child after her ex. She began laughing, but then went on to add that she received a bigger dose since she believed it would benefit me more. She spoke it carelessly, without regard for the potential ramifications. I was very irritated. I ended up in the ER, and she didn't appear to realize how severe her actions were. She stated she only wanted to help. I informed her that what she did was unlawful and dangerous, and it may have harmed me and my kid. Only then did she begin to apologize, but it seemed insincere. At that point, I realized I had to act. After discussing it with Luke, we decided to take legal action. We filed a police report, documented everything, and notified her that we would be pursuing charges for tampering with my prescription. I believed that this was the only way to make her understand how terrible the issue was. This circumstance has undoubtedly strained relations within the family. Lila is attempting to paint herself as the victim, claiming she had no idea it would upset me. But I can't accept it. If she truly cared about my health, she would not have changed my medicine without my knowledge, especially since I am pregnant. Some families believe we are going too far by involving the police, claiming that she was only trying to help. However, tampering with drugs is a severe matter, and good intentions do not excuse it. Now I'm torn. I'm worried I'm overreacting, especially since some family members are upset with me and claim it's harming our family. However, I believe she breached a significant threshold that cannot be overlooked. What she did may have hurt me or my baby. If I let this go, it would feel like I am enabling her to intervene in my life and jeopardize our safety simply because she felt she was helpful. I hate that it has come to this, but I feel like I have no option. Perhaps suffering legal consequences will make her realize how serious her acts were. Still, I'm questioning everything, and I'd appreciate any other perspectives. So, Reddit, AITA for pursuing legal action against my sister-in-law for interfering with my meds simply because I refused to name my child after her ex. Update 1. Hello everyone. First and foremost, I'd like to thank you for your concern regarding my health. This means a lot to me. I'm feeling a lot better now, luckily. My physicians have kept a tight check on me, and I am now back on my original medication, which is safe for my pregnancy. I wanted to give you an update on my problem with my sister-in-law Lila. Since I mentioned pursuing legal action against her for interfering with my medicine in my last report, things have shifted in unexpected ways. I was still absorbing what Lila had done and dealing with the ramifications when she contacted me. She called to apologize, stating she didn't intend for things to escalate and thought she was helpful. Initially, I wanted to trust her. I thought she was sincerely remorseful for interfering with my meds, but just as I was about to accept her apologies, she said something that completely took me off guard. She dismissed me, saying that I should realize that she merely wanted to help. It felt false, as if she was attempting to transfer blame rather than accept responsibility. That wasn't the worst part. Shortly after our conversation, I began hearing reports from other family members about what Lila had said. She was telling everyone that my baby wasn't Luke's. She said this was the reason I did not want to name the baby after a family member. I couldn't believe it. Not only was she attempting to spin the tale about her activities, but she was also putting my marriage and my child's paternity in the confusion. When I learned about this, I was filled with rage. Lila's lies were making me mad. I was attempting to protect myself and my pregnant baby, and she was spreading lies to justify her behavior. I questioned her directly, questioning why she had made such an accusation. Instead of accepting responsibility, she dismissed it as a misunderstanding and stated that she did not mean it that way. It was difficult for me to accept. Lila frequently reduced her behavior and deflected blame to others, and this seemed like just another example. She seemed to want to divert attention away from her irresponsible behavior and make me appear to be the problem in the family. The manipulation was annoying. I kept thinking about how I was attempting to protect my child and have a good pregnancy, only for her to cast doubt. After speaking with Luke, we realized that we needed to act. Luke phoned various relatives to explain the situation, claiming that Lila was spreading misinformation. We needed to protect our youngster and clarify any misconceptions about our family. The aftermath has been difficult. Some family members have shown their support, while others have reprimanded us for generating unnecessary drama. It's very frustrating since they don't comprehend the entire situation. This is more than simply names and Lila's feelings. It is about keeping my child safe. I feel like I'm battling on two fronts. Lila's manipulation and the family's misunderstandings. Lila's determination becomes clearer as time passes. She is sticking to her story, trying to portray herself as the victim. I overheard her at a family occasion telling others that I was overdramatic. The more she bends the facts, the more determined I am to remain solid. I never expected to have to approach a family member about something like this, especially at such a terrible moment in my life. Lila's behavior has also impacted my interactions with other family members. Some families are concerned about how this will affect future gatherings and relationships. I appreciate their desire to keep things peaceful, but at what cost? Do I have to pretend as if everything is fine while my sister-in-law makes false statements about my marriage and child? I won't do that. I've spoken with friends outside the family, and their advice has opened my eyes. Many people have encouraged me to remain strong and take notice of everything Lila says or does that could harm my family. It's unsettling to think about how far she'll go to prove her point or manipulate the circumstance. Now I'm trying to concentrate on my pregnancy, but I can't stop thinking about Lila's acts. I understand my right to protect my baby, but I'm also concerned about how this family strife may damage my child in the long run. Will kids hear unpleasant things about their aunt, which could harm our family's reputation? I am so frustrated and fatigued. If things get out of hand, we may have to take more drastic measures. Update 2. Hello everyone, it has been 6 months since my previous post, and I have a lot to tell you about what has been happening in my life lately. I'm on bed rest since my pregnancy has become hazardous. This means I should stay in bed as much as possible and minimize stress. Unfortunately, my sister-in-law, Lila, is making it difficult for me to rest. I feel like I'm in a nightmare. This is a sensitive time for me, and all I want to do is focus on my health and getting ready for our baby. Instead, I'm constantly concerned about what Lila will say next. Luke has been amazing throughout this. He supports me every day and makes me feel protected. He understands how badly this is impacting me and has attempted to address Lila about her actions. After months of watching me suffer, he realized he couldn't take it anymore. He and his parents contacted Lila and told her to stop telling lies. They informed her that if she didn't comply, She would be entirely cut off. We all thought that this would help her comprehend how serious the situation was and modify her conduct. Unfortunately, it had the opposite result. Lila refused to listen and made everything worse. She acted like the victim, claiming we were overreacting and that she was simply trying to help, whatever that meant. It was difficult to think she could twist the facts like that, especially given her previous behavior. I knew I needed to watch out for myself and my kid, but it was exhausting. Lila arrived at our home a few days later. I was lying in bed when I heard a big smash on the front door. Luke said, but before he could speak, she barged in. I was afraid. She began shouting, accusing me of wrecking the family. I was horrified and recognized how bad things had become. Luke swiftly stood in front of me, insisting that she go. I appreciated him stepping up, but it made me realize how hazardous the situation was. Lila finally departed, and I was afraid. I had no idea what she was going to do next, and I hated feeling this way in my own home. After discussing it with Luke, we determined we needed to take decisive action. We needed to defend ourselves from Lila. We agreed to file a restraining order against her. This was something we never imagined we would do. It felt drastic, but we couldn't ignore reality any longer. We needed to make sure we were safe, especially with the baby on the way. Obtaining a restraining order is not straightforward. We needed to meet with a lawyer, who advised us on what measures to take. We started collecting evidence of Lila's actions. It was difficult to recall all of the mistakes she had made and said, but we knew they were significant. We documented every incident in which she disseminated misinformation and made threats. Meanwhile, my anxiousness worsened. Being on bed rest gave me too much time to ponder, and I was concerned about how Lila's behavior would affect our baby. I also thought about how this could affect our family connections in the future. The prospect of raising a child in such an uncertain atmosphere was frightening. At the same time, Lila persisted. She continued to propagate her vile rumors. I began hearing from other family members about what she was saying, which made me feel sick. I wanted to enjoy my pregnancy, but instead I got caught up in the commotion. Luke did all necessary to keep me safe from the circumstances. He contacted family to explain the situation and clear up any confusion. Some family members were supportive. Others were not. Some others said we were generating too much drama by taking legal action and that we should just get along. This frustrated me since they didn't realize how bad Lila's behavior was. This wasn't just family gossip, it was about our health and safety. Lila's activities have also had an impact on our relationships with other family members. Some others are concerned about how this would impact future family gatherings. I understand that they want to keep the peace, but I can't just act like everything is fine while Lila spreads lies about us. I will not let her destructive behavior dictate our lives. I've also started telling friends outside the family about the predicament. Their support has been essential. They advise me to be tough and keep track of Lila's actions. They make me understand that I am not overreacting and that I have every right to safeguard my child. It's good to have a support network beyond my family, especially when things get stressful. We are working on securing the restraining order, but I am also trying to focus on my pregnancy right now. I truly hope we receive the restraining order because Lila's presence in our lives is becoming a hazard for everyone. I'll keep you folks updated on the results. Update 3. Hello everyone, it's been a few weeks since my previous update, and I have a lot to tell you about what's been happening. We ultimately received the restraining order against Lila, which is a huge relief, but things were pretty stressful before that, and I'd like to share that with you. Lila emailed me before we received the restraining order, which was a huge mistake. In her message, she threatened to harm me and my baby if I followed through on the restraining order. I was stunned. It was difficult to imagine that someone I thought of as family could say anything so cruel and dangerous. It seemed like she was attempting to intimidate me into quitting up. The email was filled with claims that I was the one ruining the family, and I couldn't believe what I was reading. Reading that email made me feel strange. I felt terrified and angry. How did she believe it was acceptable to threaten me? It was difficult not to let anxiety take over. I continued to be concerned about how her threats might affect my pregnancy and mental health. I couldn't let her dominate my life anymore, especially because I wanted to focus on my health and prepare for my baby. Luke was naturally angry when I showed him the email. He couldn't believe Lila had gone this far. He instantly instructed me to save it as proof. He realized we had to take her warning seriously, so we started organizing to consult with our lawyer. It was exhausting to deal with all of this while trying to remain optimistic throughout my pregnancy, but I knew I needed to be strong for my baby. While we were working on the restraining order, I couldn't stop thinking about how Lila's behavior had altered. What began as a silly quarrel had escalated into serious threats, and I was very hurt. I'd always thought of her as family, but now she appeared like a stranger who intended to hurt us rather than serve us. After a few difficult days, we went to court to file for the restraining order. I was apprehensive, but I knew it was important. With the email as proof, I thought the judge would understand how severe our situation was. During the hearing, I detailed everything that had occurred, from the prescription to the gossip to Lila's threats. I noticed that the judge was paying careful attention and taking notes. When we received the restraining order, we felt a big relief. However, I realized this was only the start of a lengthy road. Despite the restraining order, I am still uneasy. Lila had previously demonstrated her unpredictable nature, and I was concerned that she would try to contact me again, especially given her recent conduct. The concept of constantly glancing over my shoulder is exhausting. I want to enjoy my pregnancy, but instead I'm overwhelmed with anxiety. Luke and I discussed how to proceed. We knew we needed to maintain our distance from Lila, but we also didn't want to isolate ourselves from the rest of the family. This was a sensitive position. We recognized we needed to be careful what we informed our families. We didn't want to engage them in the drama, but we also needed to keep ourselves safe. It's been a wild ride since the restraining order was issued. We must consider how to handle future family functions, especially because Lila understands how to manipulate circumstances so that she appears to be the victim. Friends who still speak with her say she's attempting to elicit sympathy by stating we're overreacting and that I'm trying to turn everyone against her. It annoys me that she keeps spreading lies about us. When I hear from family about what Lila is saying, I become concerned and upset. I just want to enjoy this period in my life without any turmoil. It's hard to keep focused when I know she's attempting to cause trouble. I need to remind myself that I am not the problem here. I am doing everything I can to protect my family, and I refuse to let her rule our lives any longer. Update 4. Hello, everyone. It's been a few weeks since my previous post, and I have a lot to discuss. First and foremost, we had our baby last month, and I couldn't be happier. Holding our baby temporarily alleviated all of our fears. The joy of parenthood is beyond words, and we are grateful for our healthy kid. We named him Neil, and he's already won our hearts. Despite our joy at the arrival of our new baby, my sister-in-law Lila became concerned. As you may know, we previously secured a restraining order against her for her unpredictable conduct and threats to me and our child. It felt good to have legal protection, but I didn't anticipate things getting worse. Lila unexpectedly showed up at our house shortly after Neil's birth. I was still healing from having birth and adjusting to being a new mother. Luke had gone out on a quick errand, and I was at home with the baby. While I was in the nursery comforting Neil, I heard a big bang at the front door. At first, I thought it was someone else, but when I looked out the window, I was shocked to see Lila there, looking frantic, screaming, and demanding to see her little Joe. She was literally screaming at the top of her lungs, saying I was not letting her see her baby Joe and that she would call Child Protective Services on us if I didn't allow her in. I was so afraid. I didn't need her to arrive unexpectedly. I needed to protect my child, and I was terrified because of her. I hastily went for my phone to call Luke, but before I could touch the send button, I heard the door being pushed open. She'd gotten in. I had no idea how, but I could hear her calling my name. At that moment, I felt completely powerless. I knew I had to keep Neil safe, but I was still healing from the delivery. I took a long breath to relax myself. I elected to take Neil into the bedroom and close the door behind me. Lila was shouting, and I could hear it. She sounded quite angry. It was clear she was not going to back down easily. I saw no other way out, so I dialed 911. I told the operator what was going on, including Lila's restraining order and my concern for my own and my baby's safety. While I was speaking, Lila continued beating on the door, begging to see Neil. It was terrible to realize how desperate she was to contact us. Fortunately, the cops responded shortly. I was relieved to hear sirens approaching because it meant aid was on the way. When the officers entered, Lila was still attempting to break into the room. They intervened right away, pulling her back and attempting to calm her down. I finally opened the door after the cop told me Lila was being held down. I saw the officers speaking to her, but I was too shaken to hear what they were saying. I stayed in the bedroom, keeping Neil tight and trying to console him because the loudness was making him cry. I felt terrible that he had to experience such chaos so early in his life. The police were speaking with Lila, attempting to figure out why she had gone to our house and what her objectives were. Lila's predicament turned out to be worse than I anticipated. The police informed me that her neighbors had reported her for trespassing many times. She had been acting suspiciously, attempting to enter their homes and cause havoc. The officers also discovered that she had multiple outstanding tickets and had been arrested for drunk driving just 2 weeks before she arrived at our place. It was astonishing to discover how troubled she was. Lila was arrested for violating the restraining order. They felt it was significant, particularly given her recent actions. After the officers left with Lila, I felt safe enough to breathe again. Luke arrived shortly after and was noticeably concerned when he noticed the police cars outside. He rushed in to discover me and Neil. As soon as he walked in, I felt a great weight lifted off my shoulders. I described everything that had transpired. Luke was outraged that Lila had gone to our house, but he was grateful that the cops had handled it. We have taken steps to tighten our security. We've added more locks to the doors and installed a security camera outside. I wanted to ensure that we were safe from any further incidents. The news of what happened traveled swiftly, and family members soon called out to check on us. I felt grateful to everyone who helped and encouraged us during this difficult period. However, it was difficult to ignore Lila's persistent attempts to elicit sympathy. She began to seek sympathy from anybody willing to listen. She modified the story, portraying herself as a misunderstood family member who simply wanted to visit her nephew. Some friends who had distanced themselves but remained in touch reported that Lila insisted we were overreacting and making her life difficult, portraying herself as a victim. She conveniently ignored the threats she had made, as well as the severe reasons that prompted the restraining order. Her attempts seeking attention became increasingly desperate. As the truth came to light, we discovered that this was not her first encounter with the authorities. After Lila's arrest, we discovered that she had a far longer criminal past than we had previously imagined. She had been involved in numerous theft and fraud cases over the years, which family members had kept hidden to avoid disgrace. This was stunning, especially because Luke and I learned how much she had lied to us. It caused us to doubt if much of what we knew about her was true. Her attempts to elicit pity began to fail as more family members and friends learned about her past offenses. The compassion she sought was replaced by judgment and disappointment from practically everyone around her, as she realized she had broken numerous lines and endangered her family for her own pride. Most people had concluded they were done with her. They realized that the situation was far worse than she had represented, and her lies crumbled as her criminal record and unpredictable behavior became public. Lila is now cut off from the majority of her family because she is back in jail for her most recent misdeeds. After years of giving her opportunities, those close to her eventually recognize her true self. Luke and I are relieved that she is finally out of our lives. We have made it clear that we will not tolerate any further contact or give her another opportunity to manipulate or harm us. The entire scenario has been difficult, but knowing that we can move on with our lives, free of her manipulation and disruption, is a tremendous relief. We have taken precautions to safeguard ourselves, and especially our infant, from any future drama she may attempt to generate. For the first time in what feels like an eternity, we can fully focus on our family and raising Neil in a safe, loving environment. Lila is finally gone, providing some serenity to our family after months of tension and fear. Luke and I can now concentrate on providing a safe and loving environment for our child, free of the chaos and manipulation that Lila caused. Our family and friends have been really supportive, and it is comforting to know that we all agree on the importance of maintaining strong boundaries. It's awful how things progressed with someone we once trusted, but we've learned the value of safeguarding our family and setting firm boundaries when necessary. It's reassuring to know that Lila and her previous activities are no longer a part of our life, and we don't have to worry about her causing any problems. This event has taught us to value our peace and safety, and that is our goal going forward. This will hopefully be my last update here. Thank you to everyone who reached out to me and encouraged me during this time. I really needed a stranger's opinion on what was going on to make sure I wasn't losing my mind. Everyone who commented on my postings was really helpful. After 5 years and an engagement, my fiancé's hurtful comment and doubts about marriage ended our relationship. This morning, his mother called me in tears. Dominic and I have been dating for little over 5 years, and we have been engaged for the past 8 months. We met at a housewarming party through mutual acquaintances, just two folks who got along because they disliked IPAs and liked 90s cartoons. After dating for a year, moving in after 2, adopting beans at 3, and getting engaged last summer, our relationship progressed. Simple proposal, Saturday morning hike to our favorite vista, where he eagerly removed the ring box from his pocket. Yes, I said. We quickly chose October and have been preparing everything, mostly me while he nods. Dominic started making odd statements while arranging our wedding 3 months ago. Uncertain, not negative. When I showed him various places, he'd say, "That's a lot of money for just one day," or, "Do we really need to invite all those people?" I ignored it as male behavior or economic concerns. Later, my wedding texts were answered late. When I sent him caterer options, he'd reply hours later with "looks fine," or "whatever you want." When I asked if everything was well, he'd say he was busy at work. His construction company had some big projects. Last month, he spent more time with coworker Paul. They had beers or watched games at Paul's house after work. Again, nothing special, but more often. He seemed distant when he got home, checking his phone more and paying less attention. I tried to tell my best friend, Lena. She suggested a date night to bond over pre-wedding worries. Last Friday, I made reservations at a new Italian restaurant downtown, wore a nice dress, not something fancy, just something I hadn't worn in a while, and bought Dominic's favorite beer to keep in the fridge. Date night failed. He barely spoke during supper. He revealed that he wasn't sure he was ready when I mentioned finalizing our honeymoon plans. Everything, from honeymoon to wedding and marriage. Shocked. He was uncertain after 5 years together and 8 months engaged. He recalled talking to Paul about how marriage changes things and mentioned Paul's brother's terrible divorce when I asked. As the conversation grew, I tried not to make a noise in the restaurant while feeling like my life was falling apart. We barely touched our entree. Silence and tension permeated the ride home. He avoided talking at our apartment, saying he wanted time to think before sleeping on the couch. The next morning was awful. We navigated a shared Airbnb like strangers. He suggested lunch with Paul and coworkers in downtown sports bar The Rusty Nail and watched the game. Too emotionally exhausted to protest. A few hours later, Lena called to tell me to leave the flat. We had coffee, and I unpacked everything. Lena listened intently, suggesting Dominic was worried about the wedding. I usually decompress by wandering Target after coffee. I bought useless throw pillows and shampoo because retail therapy is therapy, right? By early evening, I was relaxed and went home. Kyler, Dominic's co-worker whom I met at the business Christmas party, texted me as I drove into our apartment complex. The message inquired about my well-being and noted that the Rusty Nail had gotten strange. I called Kyler instead of messaging. He was initially hesitant to talk, but after some coaxing, he did. The boys had been bugging Dominic about wedding plans, and when Paul asked if he was ready to be with one woman forever, Dominic expressed doubts. Dominic, evidently drunk, said, "If you were prettier, I'd be more excited about marrying you." Paul asked him what was holding him back, and Dominic laughed. Kyler told me he and other guys confronted Dominic about the comment, but Dominic got defensive and said they couldn't take a joke. I cried for 20 minutes in my car after that call. The man I loved for 5 years, whom I believed loved me, joked about my appearance as a reason he wasn't ready to marry me. Dominic was asleep on the couch as I entered, still in his clothes. The place reeked of old beer. I locked beans in the bedroom. I smelled Dominic's apology meal, coffee and bacon on Sunday morning. He looked hungover and sheepish, like food would fix everything. I told him what Kyler told me, and his face dropped. He claimed ignorance and inebriation to lessen the situation. He said he murmured something dumb to stop the boys taunting him for being strapped down. He exacerbated, guys being guys, by supporting them. We discussed him humiliating me in front of his friends, but he denied that was his goal. He said that he was worried about wedding costs and pressure, but I couldn't get over how he exploited my beauty as a cruel joke. I couldn't stay at his flat. I took my handbag to Elliot's apartment. My brother has always been my refuge in tough times. When I told him what happened, he was furious and ready to face Dominic. I calmed him by stating I needed space and a place to stay until I thought things out. Dominic texted apologies and invitations to chat at home throughout Sunday. Only once did I say I needed time. I phoned in sick on Monday because I couldn't handle taking dentist office calls while pretending everything was fine. About 9 a.m., Valerie, Dominic's mother, called Monday morning. We've always gotten along, and she's been more supportive than my mother, who lives in Florida with husband number 3. She seemed agitated, saying Dominic had called her the night before and I needed to know something. She asked if we could meet somewhere to chat, so I'm waiting in my car outside the coffee shop where I'm supposed to meet Valerie in 15 minutes, wondering what else to know and if my 5-year relationship is over. I never thought I'd write this. I keep looking at my engagement ring, wondering whether I should have expected this. Was I wrong, or did things shift so fast? Should I follow Valerie? How could she say anything to fix this? First, I'd like to thank everyone for their overwhelming support of my initial piece. I wasn't expecting thousands of comments. I tried to read as many as I could between weeping bouts and stress-eating emergency Oreos from my brother's pantry. I met Valerie, Dominic's mother, and I'll discuss it at the end of this update. So much has happened in the past 2 days, and I'm still processing everything. I called in sick again after publishing on Monday. I had just 2 sick days in the preceding year and sounded like death on the phone, but my supervisor was nice. I spent most of the morning in Elliot's spare room, storage closet, reading your comments and organizing my thoughts. At lunchtime, Lena brought sandwiches from a deli near her hospital. Despite not eating since Sunday, I forced myself to consume a few bites. Lena softly reminded me I couldn't ignore Dominic forever. We lived together, shared accounts, and had to talk. She was right, I couldn't stay at my brother's place forever, especially since Elliot's girlfriend was coming over for dinner. I didn't want to be Taco Tuesday's sad third wheel. I took a shower, grabbed one of Elliot's hoodies, don't judge, it felt wonderful, and drove home after Lena left. I practiced my speech the whole time. I would remain calm, adult, and receive answers without yelling or crying. Dominic's truck was in our parking spot when I pulled in. He should have worked. My stomach knotted as I approached our second-floor apartment steps. I opened the door to find him on the couch in sweatpants, looking exhausted, surrounded by wedding planning binders I'd made over the last 8 months. Little Trader Bean snuggled with him. He was surprised and relieved to see me and stated he was taking personal time off. He was probably reviewing all the wedding preparations to figure out how he bungled it so badly. I stood by the door, not ready to sit next to him, and told him that wedding plans wouldn't change his mind. We had a long, difficult conversation. He apologized again for the bar comment, calling it terrible and not believing it. He said he was trying to appear cool in front of his buddies when I asked why he would say something he didn't believe, which made me even angrier. Before the bar incident, I reminded him during dinner that he had misgivings about our wedding even when sober. He admitted to being anxious about a late work assignment, Paul's marriage horror stories, and our wedding money. He didn't tell me his problems until they exploded in the worst way. As we talked, he revealed a new fear, becoming his father. Dominic rarely talked about his father, who left him at 12 after having an affair with a coworker and moving to Arizona to start a new life. Dominic had always said it didn't bother him, but he now admits he was worried about a genetic predisposition to cheat or abandon his family. I explained that he was not his father and that genetics do not affect relationships. His comment was telling. He wondered if he could pledge eternity when it seemed impossible from his childhood. He hesitated to say he had spoken with Kyler when I asked if he had told anyone else. Since Kyler joined the group, they had become closer, and Kyler had relationship troubles. This explained why Kyler called me about the bar incident. He knew Dominic's concerns. When I asked Dominic about his problems, the conversation soured. He was honest. He was scared, anxious, and unsure about marriage while loving me. He said he kept thinking about how his parents were happy until they weren't and didn't want to put us in that situation. I wondered why he hadn't spoken up sooner. He said he was afraid I wouldn't think he loved me enough. I saw the irony. Hiding his anxieties created the situation he wanted to avoid. I inquired if his joke about my appearance was a genuine lack of interest, and he said he'd always thought I was gorgeous. He mentioned our first meeting at the housewarming party and my green sweater and his terrible beer pong skills. He said he made the comment out of insecurity and a desire to look in control in front of his friends rather than stuck. I asked a crucial question as we talked. Were his doubts against marriage in general or just marrying me? His sluggish response told me everything. He finally admitted that he was worried about marriage and commitment but also about our long-term compatibility. This hurt more than comments about my beauty. He was still unclear if we were compatible after 5 years. He explained how we had evolved since our early 20s. My increased need for preparation versus spontaneity and his abandoned hopes of launching a business. He asked if we had grown closer or apart, even though I told him partnerships change. I was emotionally weary by then. I told him I needed time to think about his public humiliation, secret fears, and now our compatibility anxiety. He told us to try therapy or couples counseling, but I insisted on separation. He noticed my phone vibrating as I packed more clothes. I found 3 Valerie missed calls. With everything going on, I forgot about our coffee date. Dominic looked worried after I mentioned this. My mother called crying the morning before, stating she needed to talk about something urgent. After calling her Sunday night, he replied clearly. When I asked what he told her, he was pale and reluctant to look at me. He made vague references to their fight and his doubts, but I was dubious. When pressed, he said he couldn't explain and suggested I ask his mother. I called Valerie after leaving. She reacted instantly, worried I hadn't attended our meeting. I replied I was with Dominic at the flat. She requested that we meet promptly since she had important news. Her voice seemed strange when I mentioned being with Dominic, which reinforced my fears that I was missing something essential. After agreeing to meet Valerie in 30 minutes, I asked Dominic what his mother knew that I didn't. Remorse and resignation filled his face when he looked up. He said he should have told me anything and suggested I go to his mother, promising to leave when I returned. I rapidly packed a week's worth of clothes, toiletries, and my laptop. Dominic told me he loved me at the door, but I said love isn't enough. Karina, Dominic's sister, called me on my way to Valerie. She was worried about Dominic and me after hearing from Paul about the bar situation and seeing that Dominic wasn't responding to her texts when their mother was unhappy. Karina looked surprised when I told her I was meeting Valerie and asked if it was about Maria. Name struck me like a truck. What about Maria? Karina's horror and hasty retreat suggested she had accidentally revealed something significant. She apologized and recommended me to listen to Valerie, but refused to elaborate despite subsequent attempts. Valerie was waiting at a window table when I entered the coffee shop parking lot. She had red, puffy eyes. I thought what she would say would change everything. My phone buzzed with a text as I reached her table. Dominic said, "Whatever my mom tells you, please remember that I do love you. I just got scared and made terrible mistakes. I'll understand if you can't forgive me." I put my phone away, breathed deeply, and sat across from Valerie. Second update. Thanks for supporting my earlier posts. Reading your comments is comforting and overwhelming. Many of them have gone unanswered, but I read them and appreciate the advice. Lena's flat is my new writing spot. I hated returning to Elliot's or our apartment after meeting Valerie yesterday. Lena's pull-out couch is slightly cozier than Elliot's storage room futon. Pepper, her cat, doesn't mind me bawling over my oatmeal at 2 a.m. The Valerie appointment. Where do I start? The coffee shop was packed on Tuesday afternoon. Computer-using students filled most tables at a nearby community college after classes. Valerie received a corner booth with high backs for privacy. She changed since our monthly family dinner 3 weeks ago. Her gorgeous hair was unkempt, and she wore no makeup. Valerie has always worn mascara and lipstick in my 5 years of knowing her. This is her routine, just like others need coffee to start the day. She stood and hugged me when I came, smelling like her lavender dryer sheets. Instead of a caramel with extra whipped cream, I requested a black coffee. It felt improper to order anything fun for this talk. After some awkward small talk, Valerie got to the point. Dominic broke down Sunday night and called her. She understood his concerns about commitment and becoming like his father, but Maria drove his behavior more immediately. I almost choked on coffee. Dominic's new project coordinator, Maria? What about the woman he mentioned briefly? Valerie hurriedly ripped a napkin into tiny pieces to explain Dominic's love for Maria over several months. Dominic told his mother there was no physical contact, but an emotional connection made him rethink our relationship. I sat there trying to understand this, feeling like the coffee shop was tilted. Creating a timeline in my head while Valerie spoke. Maria started working with Dominic around New Year's. I briefly met her at the March corporate holiday dinner. Dominic had already changed, he was more aloof, checked his phone more, and spent more time with coworkers. What I thought was more stress from his big task was more. When I asked Valerie why she was telling me this instead of protecting her son, she cried. As she explained, her marriage dissolution became clear. Before Dominic's father moved to Arizona with a coworker, there were months of alienation, harsh words, and staged disputes to create distance rather than face truth. She left me in the dark as Dominic took the coward's way out to avoid repeating the past. The bar comment became clear, not intoxicated folly, but a subconscious attempt to harm our connection so he didn't have to make the hard decision. We chatted for over an hour. Valerie recounted how she battled to save her marriage after finding the affair and blamed herself for not being enough. Before I parted in the parking lot, she said, "The hardest lesson I learned was that you can't make someone choose you. They either do or they don't, and anything in between is just delaying the inevitable." Afterwards, I stared at my phone in my car for a while. Dominic sent 3 more texts, all variations on "I'm sorry" and "I love you," but Maria was not mentioned, hinting that the truth was buried. I called Lena instead of responding and begged to stay at her flat. She did not hesitate or ask questions. She simply said she was setting up the pull-out couch and would pick up dinner on her way home. Everyone needs that kind of friend in a crisis. Finally, I wrote to Dominic. "I know about Maria. Don't contact me again until you're ready to tell me the complete truth. I'll be collecting more of my things tomorrow while you're at work." I blocked his phone number for the night. I wanted time to think without his explanations. On her way to Lena's, Karina called. Valerie had overheard Dominic and Paul discussing the matter last Thursday. The chat confirmed and expanded on her information. She made her brother pledge to tell me the truth after the weekend. He had broken his promise. Karina's unwavering support amazed me most. Despite being Dominic's sister, she supported me. My relief was profound. I was worried about losing Dominic and his family, who had become like family to me. Lena's flat was perfect that night, A neutral space where I could exist without explanation. Dining on the living room floor. Her coffee table was covered in online class papers as we watched a baking competition we didn't understand. Its simple normalcy saved me during my emotional turmoil. I used my phone to relive 5 years of vacations, holidays, and everyday selfies with Dominic after Lena went to bed. Our engagement photos showed us smiling like lottery winners. I was mentally planning for the next day, going to the apartment while Dominic was at work, packing more stuff, possibly talking to the landlord about breaking our lease, when an unknown number texted me. "Hi, Margot. This is Maria. I know you have blocked Dominic. Can we meet tomorrow? There's more to the story, which you should know. Only the two of us." My pulse raced as I glanced at the letter, wondering what else could be and why this woman would want to tell me directly. I scribbled a response after what seemed like an hour but was actually minutes. Where and when? Third update. First and foremost, I want to thank everyone for their overwhelming support in my previous posts. Your comments have helped me through restless nights more than you realize. Yes, I'm alive. Sometimes are easier. My visit with Maria went differently than expected. Probably impartial, we met at a little brunch establishment near the park. She was nervously checking her phone when I arrived. She seemed less polished and more human than at the corporate party. Her ponytail was messy, and she wore little makeup. Her unease caught my attention immediately. Shouldn't she have been more confident if she got involved with my fiancé emotionally? She kept fiddling with her coffee cup, avoiding eye contact. The talk presented two major surprises. First, Maria didn't know Dominic liked her until Paul casually mentioned it last week. She said she and Dominic worked on a project together, occasionally texting after hours but never violating limits. According to her, she never flirted with him or promoted anything other than friendship. She showed me their work-related messaging history and the occasional meme, nothing romantic or inappropriate. She had a 3-year boyfriend who occasionally joined them for happy hours. The second insight affected Paul. He was apparently intentionally causing trouble. Maria overheard him at work encouraging Dominic to consider his options before settling down, calling her someone who gets Dominic better than I do. She explained that Paul had been telling everyone at work that Dominic was having second thoughts about the wedding, joking about him being trapped and missing out on his freedom. After our meeting, I felt unusually peaceful. Maria wasn't the monster I expected. She was a victim of Dominic's manipulation and frailty. Before leaving, she said, "You seem like someone who understands their worth. Don't let anyone make you doubt it." My perspective and tactics changed after the encounter. The focus shifted from Dominic and me to Paul's detrimental influence, Dominic's family, and my role in this. I emailed Karina later to organize a neutral family gathering at her place because I wasn't ready to be alone with Dominic. She agreed fast. I remember yesterday's lunch. Her small yet pleasant flat was organized by Karina. She ordered simple pasta and salad from the Italian restaurant near her building. Valerie arrived first, then Paul. He attended because Karina insisted, and Dominic, who looked exhausted, did too. First 20 minutes were terrible. We ate pasta at Karina's dining table, talking about the weather and her new coffee table. The elephant in the room was almost eating our meal, but no one wanted to confess it. Finally, Valerie broke the silence by reiterating that we were there to face what had happened and find a solution, not to socialize. That opened the floodgates. I told Paul all I learned from Maria, watching Paul's expression. The uncertainty and defensiveness in his face said it all. He tried to help his friend, but Karina cut him off immediately. Dominic sat calmly, staring at his unturned pasta. He confessed that Maria had been pleasant, but he had twisted it out of fear of becoming his father. Valerie recoiled at that comment. Dominic seemed embarrassed when I told the joke at the bar. He said it was his cowardice, not Maria. Paul was teasing him about being whipped, so he shouted something mean to appear cool. Dominic says my appearance never mattered. Paul dismissed it as guy talk, but Karina reminded everyone that Dominic and I were getting married in 3 months. That simple comment, a reminder of our fast-approaching wedding, hit me hard. After sending save the dates and paying deposits, my dress was hanging in Lena's spare closet for final modifications. I subtly remarked that I no longer believed the wedding would happen. The room quieted. Dominic began to protest, but I stopped him. He stated he spent the week trying to figure out how we got here. I realized it wasn't simply Maria, that joke, or Paul's harm. Dominic was dishonest with me and himself. I said that I had ignored his lack of interest in wedding arrangements, his increased time with Paul, and his emotional isolation for months. I made excuses because it was easier than facing the truth, but I deserved someone who believed in me and didn't need a family intervention to figure out their feelings. Valerie and Karina said shut up, when Paul made a snarky remark about my drama. Dominic said he loved me but was frightened of messing up. He already had, I said. We talked for hours. There were tears, yelling, especially between Karina and Paul, and hard truths. Old wounds reopened and new ones formed. When everyone was emotionally exhausted at midnight, we had to cancel the wedding. Our 5-year romance ended. Not a fight or a dramatic exit, just a sense that something fundamental had broken between us. Trust. It might be rebuilt someday, but not for an October wedding, not with Maria still working at Dominic's company, and not with that joke lingering. Karina brought me back to Lena's and said my relationship with her and Valerie hadn't altered. She stated I was still family despite Dominic's actions. After returning to Lena's apartment, I sat on the pull-out couch in the dark, realizing that 5 years had passed, the wedding had been canceled, and the future was unknown. Didn't cry right away. I made a list on my phone's notes app. Call the venue to cancel, the deposit is likely gone, return the ring, contact guests, relocate out of the apartment, change relationship status on social media. Past 2 a.m. Shuffled out of her bedroom, Lena. She heard me enter and checked on me. She sat beside me in the pull-out and threw her arm around my shoulders as I told her the wedding was off. We sat like that till daylight, not talking and just living in my new craziness. Dominic texted me this morning to meet to discuss the apartment lease, separating our accounts, and what to do with our shared furniture. So mature, so final. Elliot also asked when he could help me pack. My brother is always practical. My mother asked if she should cancel her flight to the wedding after hearing from one of my relatives who follows Karina on Instagram. My finger feels heavy with the ring. Twisting it unconsciously was a nervous habit I didn't realize. Nothing fancy, just a round diamond in white gold. Dominic chose it because it reflected our classic relationship. I called the venue this morning, ironically. The coordinator was kind but firm. The deposit is non-refundable so close to the date, $8,000 lost. Trips, new clothes, and outings have been cut for nearly a year. My cerebral half cringes at the waist, while my emotional side is indifferent about money. Karina texted me that she had found a photographer who might move our money to a future event. Valerie promised to tell relatives about the cancellation to avoid awkwardness. Small kindnesses afterward. Paul replied with a non-apologetic text stating things happen for a reason and I'd find someone better. I deleted it without replying. Maria wrote me a quick message apologizing and assuring me that nothing happened. Strangely, I trust her. Dominic's anxieties and Paul's manipulation seem to have made her collateral damage. Simple reminders like my wedding planning binder in my tote bag, our shared Spotify soundtrack for the celebration, and my laptop honeymoon research folder are the hardest. A lost future in small pieces. I went to work against Lena's advice to take a mental health day. Reddit browsing and overthinking appeared more distracting than answering phones and filling insurance claims at home. Coworkers have been surprisingly normal, either unaware or respectfully ignoring my puffy eyes and missing engagement ring. Tomorrow, Dominic and I will exchange keys and discuss the place at a coffee shop. Since my name is on the lease, he'll stay with his cousin until he leaves. Another practical discussion about leaving a relationship. Part of me doubts this. Last month, we debated reception music and tried different cakes. Separating kitchen appliances and disputing who keeps the PlayStation. Valerie stated at dinner, endings are rarely clean or perfect. Most of the time, they're messy, sad, and complicated. She should know. After Dominic's father left, she rebuilt her life, had 2 children, and found happiness. You wouldn't believe she'd been through so much looking at her now. Maybe there's hope. Now I'm taking things day by day. Tomorrow, I'll manage the flat and money. Next week, I'll start house hunting. The future after that is murky but real. Karina texted me to meet for coffee this weekend. She said her longtime family friend Kenzo had offered his holiday cabin if I needed a getaway to clear my thoughts. Dominic's family's unexpected help is much appreciated. Accepting Kenzo's offer is up in the air. Something inside me wants to process in peace. I understand I need Lena's realistic sympathy, Elliot's protective big brother energy, Valerie and Karina's complex allegiance right now. I'll stop using my wedding countdown app. Will not pin reception decorations or practice Dominic's surname signature. That future is over, but I'm hoping for something else. It's weird to write this final report from my new apartment. It's been 3 months since the family dinner that ended my engagement, 3 months of rebuilding my life in unexpected ways. Since several of you have requested an update, here it is. The good, the bad, and the unexpected. First, practicalities. After we broke up, Dominic left our shared flat within a week. Elliot and Lena helped me pack his possessions while he was at work, placing everything neatly labeled in the living room for him. It was strange to divide 5 years of shared existence into his and mine. The coffee maker he got for his birthday, the throw blanket I bought on our weekend trip to that small mountain town, and the framed photos we hung on every wall made the apartment feel hollow, like a stage set. After 2 more weeks, the leasing management let me out for a month's payment. To escape our relationship's ghost in every room was worth the money. Finding a new home was harder than planned. My single-person budget is tighter due to the bad rental market. My 1-bedroom apartment across town, farther from work, has a tiny balcony where I'm growing herbs in dollar store pots. The basil fades, but the mint grows. Against all odds, I saw that as symbolic. A financial adjustment. When planning for one, car insurance, streaming subscriptions, and even groceries become my responsibility. I now use coupons, buy store brands, use a spreadsheet, and think twice before ordering takeout. Growing up lessons I never thought I'd need at 29. Marriage merchants were surprisingly accommodating. The venue withheld our deposit but sent me a nice card wishing me happiness. The florist refunded half our payment despite their no refund policy. In a shocking but thoughtful move, the DJ suggested his rehab working brother. I keep the engagement ring in its box in my dresser. Dominic advised me to keep or sell it because returning it was bad karma. Not sure what to do with it. I sometimes forget it's there, and other times I open the box and stare at it, wondering how something so small could have had so much potential. Social media had its own horror. I waited 2 weeks to update my relationship status to avoid questions. I completed it at 2 a.m. On a Tuesday, well-meaning friends asked, "What happened?" Distant relatives prayed, and former classmates I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly entered my direct conversations with phony fear that felt like interest. I wrote a brief, ambiguous comment about mutual decisions and requested privacy, then turned off notifications and threw my phone across the couch. Later, I posted a photo of my new apartment keys with the caption "New Beginnings." It got fewer likes than my engagement announcement, but it felt more authentic. Since the breakup, we've talked about practical issues like mail that arrived at the wrong place, the shared cloud storage account we forgot to separate, and returning a borrowed air fryer to his sister. Each conversation was polite but tense, like acquaintances forced to make small talk in an elevator. He still works for the same job, is friends with Paul, though Karina says they had a falling out recently, and Dominic contacted me last month and asked if we could meet. We hadn't seen each other since the key exchange at the apartment, and I was curious about his goals. We met in a coffee shop near my new apartment, as Lena half-jokingly suggested. He was leaner, had larger circles under his eyes, and wore a shirt I didn't recognize. After 10 minutes of stiff small talk about work and the weather, he took out a journal and said, "I've been seeing someone." And my heart stuttered before he said, "A therapist." The notebook was part of his therapy, daily reflections on patterns and habits he wanted to change. He'd been reflecting on his relationship with his father, his friendship with Paul, and how he treated me. He didn't ask for forgiveness or recon. "I should have done this years ago," he said. "Maybe things would have been different." He was the most self-aware I'd ever seen, and I hoped treatment would help him, not for my sake, that ship has sailed, but because carrying so much unresolved familial pain was exhausting. "I'm glad," he said. "They need good people in their lives." One of the oddest parts of this separation has been keeping in touch with Dominic's family. Valerie texts me weekly, usually with hilarious memes or garden updates. Karina and I get breakfast every other Sunday at this small cafe midway between our apartments. I'd like to think this tragedy has given me a profound awakening, allowing me to rediscover myself. Some days, I feel emancipated, relieved that I didn't marry someone who could harm me so carelessly. Other days, when my hot water heater breaks or I can't reach something on the high shelf Dominic would have retrieved for me, I miss the practical benefits of collaboration. I've also started therapy, not because of the breakup, but because it made me realize how much I compromised myself in that relationship, how many red flags I'd ignored because they were wrapped in familiarity, and how much of myself I'd sacrificed to accommodate Dominic's needs and insecurities. My therapist suggested I restore some of my lost self. Dating again seems far off, even though my coworkers have started suggesting I meet this great guy they know. I'm still learning how to be comfortable in my own company. The most unexpected resulted from canceling our honeymoon. We'd planned a 10-day trip to the coast and rented a little home with a veranda overlooking the water. Then Lena suggested something radical. "Go on the trip alone." "You've never traveled alone," she said. "Maybe it's time." 10 days alone in a lovely home designed for two sounded like the start of a tragic indie film, but the more I thought about it, the more appealing it seemed. I could wake up whenever I wanted, explore without limits, and read a book in one sitting. So I'm going to a honeymoon cabin alone next week. I've packed 3 paperbacks, downloaded several podcasts, And bought a new bikini for comfort rather than appearance. My mother thinks I'm crazy. Elliot offered to come with me, but I declined. Karina suggested I use a dating app to see who's out there. Perhaps, but probably not. I went grocery shopping the other day when our song played over the store's speakers. 3 months ago, I would have hidden in the frozen food department, holding back tears. This time, I felt only a faint ache, like if I was pressing on a bruise that had mostly healed. Progress, not perfection. I'll be honest, my new apartment's shower has unusual temperature fluctuations. I killed another basil plant yesterday, and I still occasionally text Dominic about something funny before realizing we don't do that anymore. I'm getting married soon, but my best friend's partner plans to propose at my wedding. I asked her not to, and we argued. Original post, February 21st, 2025. Hi Honorable Judge Charlotte and Potato Queens and Kings, editor's note nickname for Charlotte Dobre fans. I have come seeking your advice. I will accept my judgment. I got married in April. We got engaged at Christmas, but in January my dad was given 5 months max after being taken off chemo for it not working. I will preface this by saying I never wanted the big white wedding. I am not a fan of being the center stage, etc. My best friend, 26F, of 14 plus years, is the polar opposite of me. My partner and I have been super busy with work, so have allowed my parents to plan the wedding. His parents are out the country on hollybobs but have had input. My dad wanted a bigger celebration as this will be the last chance he gets to celebrate. I am obviously heartbroken and want to give him exactly what he wants. I chose my bridesmaids and my partner chose his best man, groomsman. My best friend is one of my bridesmaids and my niece is my other. My bestie from day one of being asked has been finding dresses, not a problem. I've said all along, I just want them to feel comfortable so they can wear what they want. I am paying. Some of the dresses were questionable, but I honestly didn't have the heart to tell her. Men's suits were all chosen and everyone was happy. A little side note here, my parents have never been a fan of my bestie. They think she's an attention seeker and a bit of a tart. They accepted my choice because they know I love her to bits. Last week when we went to see my bestie, she had a baby recently so I love going to see Bubba. She was saying I think her partner, let's call him Paul. Paul is going to propose at your wedding, and getting all excited. She kept saying how she wanted it to be a perfect proposal and we have the perfect venue. That is true. The venue is stunning. On the way home from seeing her, I was talking to my partner and said that I didn't want him to propose at the wedding, as we were already celebrating a wedding and my beautiful daddy, and didn't want to take away from that. I reached out and tried to explain this to my bestie. Her reply, if you are going to be a bridezilla, I don't want to be part of your rushed wedding. If you can't stand other people getting attention, you're really pathetic and need to get over yourself. Here I will input, partner and I have been together 4 years. Her and partner have been together 1 year. Not that this is any sort of competition. But here is where I may be the bridezilla, a-hole. My response. I'm truly sorry you feel like I've been a bridezilla, a-hole. I've tried to be accommodating and as free-willed as possible. You've had your choice of dress, shoes, hair, makeup, accessories, which were all paid for by me, and we have accommodated bringing your baby, which of course we would as we love you. You know I don't like major attention but this is my family, my friends and they're coming to our wedding. If you're so desperate for the attention on you, perhaps it's best you're not there. I'm sorry that this hasn't worked out, I'm truly heartbroken. But this day needs to be perfect for my daddy. Her last response, I didn't respond. Your dad's gonna die, he won't even be here to give us shoddy. I don't mind losing her over this, but I'm heartbroken and now thinking I may have been a bridezilla. Please help Potato Kings, Queens and everyone in between. Oops comments, most of OOP's comments include screenshots between her and the friend. I have transcribed them below. OOP, all one text. Hey gorgeous. It was so lush to see you and Mr. Roman. He's gotten so big. Can I just air something that's really played on my mind? I absolutely don't want to upset you in any way and you know I've given you and Savanya free reign with everything from dress, accessories and everything. I also haven't asked you to pay for anything so you've got a free room for the night and everything paid for. Basically, I'm just a bit hurt that you are planning on getting engaged at my wedding. It's a day that is less about me and more about my dad being able to celebrate with people that cherish him. We are already celebrating 2 things, the wedding and my daddy. I was just hoping you'd maybe ask Luke to not propose at the wedding. Friend. If you are going to be a bridezilla, I don't want to be part of your rushed wedding. If you can't stand other people getting attention, you're really pathetic and need to get over yourself. OOP, I'm truly sorry you feel like I've been a bridezilla. A-hole. I've tried to be accommodating and as free-willed as possible. You've had your choice of dress, shoes, hair, makeup, accessories, which we're sick all paid for by me, and we have accommodated bringing your baby, which of course we would as we love. You know I don't like major attention, but this is my family, my friends, and they're coming to our wedding. If you're so desperate for the attention on you, perhaps it's best you're not there. I'm sorry that this hasn't worked. Sick out, I'm truly heartbroken, but this day needs to be perfect for my daddy. Friend. You dad's gonna die. He won't even be here to give a shit if we get engaged or not. Pathetic. Edit. Same post. February 24th, 2025, 3 days later. Edit. I thought I'd update as a few common points. I no longer want this girl in my life, let alone the wedding. She's a vile human being. I have always been that one girl she gets at. I've never had much luck making friends, so I think that's why I've always accepted shitty treatment. Partner hates her and has hated her since they met. I am gonna send a message and block. She's done. I'm not sure how to share SS's, but I'll work it out. Update post. So my partner and I reached out to him, asked him to meet in a neutral place. We chose the park near to his house. He agreed to meet us. Alone. Side note, we live about 2 hours apart since I moved out of my parents and we moved to a different city. I travel most weekends to see my parents. I showed him the messages from the screenshots shown in my last post, and he was raging. Paul was so angry at what had been said, then turned to us and said, I actually wanted to leave her, but was waiting until after the wedding so as to not ruin the day for you and your dad. We had a long chat. Paul and my partner have a lot in common and he's always been lush to the both of us. We drove him home and left. Driving the 2 hours home I felt relieved. I've never felt so stress-free. I had no one to try and please. And who needs an egg-sucking bridesmaid anyway? Paul rang when we got home. They've split up. She tried to deny the messages, but didn't delete them from her phone, so he knew it was true. He told her he was repulsed and was planning on leaving after she'd been unkind to his mom, also ill. Paul wants an amicable split with the baby, so we'll possibly get lawyers involved. My daddy is over the moon. He's heartbroken that I've lost pretty much my only friend, but he's so glad she's gone. He's surviving day to day and we are giving him the best we possibly can. We took him suit shopping and he looks absolutely incredible. My mom hasn't got her dress yet, but we are having a special girls' day out soon. Dresses, spa day, and just overall love. Major updates. Passwords with vendors. Paul is still coming, either alone or with a friend or someone else. He deserves a break. Paul is going to tell her parents, who are massively religious and massively strict and will not tolerate bullies. My husband's affair with his brother's ex led to him leaving, marrying her, and abandoning our kids. I filed for custody and child support. I've, 37F, been with my husband, 44M, for 17 years. We have kids, a dog, and we used to own a business together. He has this friend, who happens to be his little brother's ex-girlfriend, 30F. She's been in and out of our lives since she broke up with my Bill over 12 years ago. Over the last 4 years or so, she's been constantly messaging my husband. She never sends me a message, unless my husband tells her that he's not home and she's on her way. Happened only once in 4 years. She's engaged and has a baby on the way. Both my husband and his friends say they have a brother-sister relationship. My kids don't like her or her kid. Her kid is 7 years younger than our youngest child. They feel like they have to babysit her when she comes over. This is what bothers me about their relationship. I am never included in their conversations online, even when she invites herself over. My husband once told his brother that he thought that she was hot and if he was younger and single he would try to date her. My Bill sent me a message to warn me about their relationship. When I spoke to my husband about it, he laughed it off and told me his brother was jealous. During an intimate moment my husband told me that she was the only person he would ever ask to do a threesome with us. That was never discussed between us before. Not even the option of a threesome. When she comes over, she barely speaks directly to me, always to my husband. I have to butt into the conversation for her to even acknowledge me. I'm tired of feeling like the third wheel in their friendship. Last year he gave me one of his old cell phones because mine had broken. He hadn't logged out of his Messenger account, so I used it to my advantage and read their messages at the time. He had admitted to her that he had told his brother that she was hot and that if he was younger and single he would date her. He then told her I wasn't home when he said that and I didn't know exactly what he said. Her response was to send him this emoji laughing face. Ever since, I feel like they both occasionally disrespect me in their conversations. All he does is talk about her. Often. He never makes her wait when she texts him. Yet sometimes when I text him, he takes a half hour to answer me. So tell me, would I be an asshole if I told him that he had to choose between his relationship with me and his friend? Update, 2 months later. We've had several talks over the last few weeks. At first he wanted to work things out. As a matter of fact, he says he never meant any of it and he keeps apologizing for breaking my trust. Now he's being a plain dick. Then he flipped and decided that since I don't want to work on things he left for his brother's house. He hasn't seen our kids in the past month. He talks to them on the phone but that's about it. So far, to piss me off, he's cut mine and the kids' cell phone service, so I had to get us new SIM cards for that because otherwise we wouldn't have phones. He's refused to pay anything in regards to school supplies and uniforms. He doesn't want to give me a dime. He hasn't done his taxes this year, which means I won't get any family allowance, CCTB, which cuts me $1,800 a month on my budget. I was able to sign the kids up for a local school supply distribution. The only thing they don't help with is the uniforms. Thankfully only my older two need uniforms. My oldest has some old uniform shirts that will be passed down to my other child. Which means my daughter will be wearing her older brother's shirts. She's really annoyed by the situation and has been giving me lots of attitude about it, but at the moment I can't afford t-shirts at $35 a piece with the school's logo on it, so she has no choice. Unfortunately uniforms are mandatory. I spoke to his friend as well. I told her everything that was going on. He told her he left me because I cheated on him, which isn't true, and she blames herself for what happened. Personally, I just think she was putting on a show. I haven't spoken to her since. If you ask me, I still think she is a hypocrite. Finances are tough. I barely make ends meet. Thankfully food banks exist because once rent is paid, I barely have anything left over for bills and groceries. I still haven't been able to get the money for a lawyer yet. I've tried taking loans, but that didn't go over well. I've tried the borrow sub and that hasn't worked either. Now it's like we're in a state of Cold War. He refuses to talk to me. For the time being. I guess he'll come around eventually. For the kids' sake I hope. I feel like sometimes I'm drowning in all this mess. Edit. Lots of comments have come up on this post. I didn't expect as many comments. I've read as many as I can and I'll address a few points. He's gone to stay with his other brother. The second one in the family. My STBX is the oldest of 3. It's the youngest of his brothers who told me what's up. I filed my taxes back in March. He was supposed to file his a few weeks later. At the time everything was good between us and I listed him as my spouse because that's what we've been doing for the past 17 years since we got married. I have to file my next taxes as single. The school uniforms. My oldest kids are in high school. A public high school. Uniforms are mandatory across the school board. I've contacted the school and unfortunately they don't have any low-cost uniforms. They suggested I take a look at local thrift shops. They do have an emergency budget for uniforms, but only if you have recently arrived in the country. I've contacted several lawyers. I know what my rights are. I know how much it's going to cost me to take him to court. He's quit his job, so suing him for alimony or whatever is going to be tough. I don't qualify for legal aid based on previous taxes. It takes at least 90 days of him being out of the family home for me to do anything against him. He's been gone for less than 2 weeks. As for my family, I have had no contact with my parents since 2010. They do not know my younger children, nor do they care. I won't be getting into the reasons why here. His family has always been in low contact with us. His parents have never liked me, and his brother who is staying with doesn't like me either. Edit 2. For those who are saying that the timeline doesn't add up. I left with my 4 kids at the beginning of July to visit my elderly grandmother who doesn't live in the same province as us. It was supposed to give us breathing time to try and work things out. When I came back with the kids he was already gone. When I was at my grandmother's he would barely talk to me, but talk to our kids via messenger. My trip with the kids to my grandmother's is a yearly trip. I didn't know that he would go from wanting to stay and work things out to leaving. I was blindsided by that. Edit 3. I do have a PayPal account. I'm not going to start making posts on FB blasting him. I'm not setting up a GoFundMe either. I don't want him finding anything out. I don't want to get charged with trying to ruin his reputation either. I don't want him to have anything to use against me in court. Comments. Comment 1. Go file for child support at your local courthouse. You can utilize self-help to assist with filling out forms. Also, get some alimony just to be an AH. Comment 2. I would file for divorce and ask for immediate financial support and full custody of the kids as he has had no physical contact with them. Stop playing with your kids' stability and mental health. Move forward and be their parent. Soon-to-be ex can go play with his friends. Update. 7 months later. It's been a long while since I've updated everyone about what's going on. It's been almost 8 long months since he left. Everyone was right when they said he would end up with her. They got married in a civil ceremony on Christmas Day. The only time he asked me for the kids was for 2 weeks during Christmas break. He wanted them there for his wedding apparently. He barely talks to the kids now. The kids text him several times a week to let him know what's up with school and their activities. He barely answers them. When he does, he complains about how I won't let him take them overnight. He still posts pictures of his new family daily on social media. They are still taking weekend trips and all that. I hate how he's flaunting everything for our older kids to see. Our oldest is going to college in the fall, and he's worried about covering his school fees. When he tried talking to his dad about it, his dad told him that now he's almost an adult, so it's not his problem anymore. I did take him to court. I found myself a good lawyer who took on my case for free. We had our first court date last week. It went well. I got full custody of the kids. We have another court date to determine child support. He's still not working legally, so the judge is having a hard time setting an amount for child support. So far all the documents he brought to court show that he is on welfare and that his new wife pays their rent, bills and vacations. I don't buy any of that. Neither does the court. He's ordered by the court to provide documentation that he's done his taxes this year and he has to try and place himself within the job market in a reasonable amount of time, in order to provide for the children he does have. Our next court date is in April. Hopefully he's going to get his shit sorted out. As for me, I'm still working 2 jobs to make ends meet. I'll be moving next month with the kids into an apartment in a co-op building. My rent will be much lower than what I am paying now. I'm stressing out about my finances. Moving is expensive. I have to hire a company to help me move all our stuff. Plus with my son starting college soon, summer break and all that, I'm stressed out all day, every day. All I see are expenses coming up. I'm still exhausted all the time. I work more than I am at home with my kids. I hope that within the next year, things get better for us. I've started my own small business online, hopefully that picks up too. I haven't started dating either. I'm not interested in meeting anyone yet. For those of you who wrote to me saying I blew up my life and family and called me the asshole in this situation, I don't think I was the asshole. I deserve better. If I am to ever update this again, it will be on my own page. Comments. Comment 1. I'm proud of you, Op. I know it's tough now, but you will come through on the other side stronger than you were before. Comment 2. His wife will end up paying his child support most likely depending on the state. OP. We are in Canada. They aren't legally married yet. They only did a civil ceremony and didn't have a marriage license. My ex admitted this in court. Their marriage has no legal value for the moment. Knowing how he is, they won't ever get a marriage license. Comment 3. I'm sure in Canada legally married or not they may be considered common law partners, depending on how long they've been together. If that's the case, ask your lawyer if they can review their earnings as a household since she's apparently paying for everything. Oop. They have only been together since August or September if my memory serves me right. My wife returned from a work retreat with a hickey. She swears it's a bug bite, but I'm not convinced. I'm at a loss. How do I move forward? I'm 27 million. In a fight with my wife, 28 million. We've had fights before but not this bad. I'm at a loss on how to proceed. For context, we're college sweethearts married for almost 6 years. We have a daughter, 4F. Our relationship was never perfect or without challenges. We've faced some family opposition with cultural differences, but we've made it work. She's my first love and my best friend. My wife works in a corporation. Her job has annual work retreats that last for about a week. This year was in Vegas. I usually arrange my work schedule and tag along with her, and we make our own trip out of it. We couldn't this year. Our daughter gets major anxiety traveling long distances. We're working on it but she wasn't budging, and we decided to choose our battles. So I stood behind and held down the fort at home. The change of plans was a bummer because the trip was part of us reconnecting as both a couple and as a family. My wife's work hours have taken a toll, and her work-life balance leaves much to be desired. We entertained the idea of her skipping the retreat. Attendance is optional, but it's generally frowned upon if you don't, and my wife's making connections in her field. She grew increasingly weird. We have a system if either of us is away for extended periods. We keep in contact. For the first day or so, she was herself, but she grew distant. I'd even text her about important stuff and be left on read while she claimed she never saw my text. Whenever we talked, she was rushing me or our daughter off the phone. These were all times she wasn't involved in retreat activities. We were supposed to have a mini birthday celebration for our daughter over FaceTime. Our daughter was excited. It was something my wife promised her because the retreat overlapped her actual birthday. But my wife backed out because she had people up to her room after a seminar. It was like she wanted my permission to break her promise to our daughter. I told her I wasn't offering that nor making her keep her word. She said I wasn't being fair, and this was a networking opportunity. They were business-oriented and wouldn't understand her stepping away for family time. I said her decision is her decision, but she'd have to explain it to our daughter. She promised her that she'd rain-check the following day. Our daughter didn't understand and cried. My wife ended up hanging up and leaving me to comfort our daughter alone. That whole incident rubbed me the wrong way. I didn't like it. She didn't keep her word for the rain check either. She was documenting the retreat on social media. One coworker, 23 million, was almost in every pic video attached to her hip. In one pic he had his arm too comfortably around her IMO. He's a recent hire in my wife's department. She was asked to oversee him. I don't like the guy. He doesn't know boundaries. Once, in response to a work assignment, he texted my wife that she's exactly the kind of woman he needs to keep him in check. My wife had brushed it off. She feels bad for him because he's not fitting in. She took him under her wing during his first retreat with the team. If I'd questioned, she'd say she was tired or networking. There was always something. But I've seen her at these retreats. This wasn't like her. She was just off. The day before her return home, she complained about a bruise on her neck. She stressed it was a bug bite. I didn't actually see the bruise until she came home. I instantly thought it was a full-on hickey. She kind of brushed it off after making a big deal of it over the phone. I didn't push because our daughter was present. But when I was able to confront her, she clung to her bug bite claim. When I kept pushing, she asked what I was trying to imply. I outright said I believed she had a hickey, and I didn't believe she was being honest with me. We had it out then. She was offended and pissed at the accusation. Infidelity has always been a sore topic. Her family has a history of infidelity. So we had a pretty bad fight, and she accused me of looking to pick a fight due to the incident with our daughter's birthday. I told her it had nothing to do with that and everything to do with a hickey on her neck. The fight ended in an impasse. We're still not recovered. She swears it's a bug bite. But I'm not convinced. I've always trusted my wife. I never doubted her, but this bruise doesn't look like a bug bite. It looks like a hickey. I only feel more strongly when I consider how distant and weird she was during the Vegas retreat. Now she's been wearing turtlenecks ever since, and we're caught between arguing and her dousing our daughter and me with affection. Communication usually prevails for us, but not now. I think my accusation pushed us to a new level of argument. I'm at a loss here. I really need outside perspectives. How do I move forward? Comments. Comment 1. I have been to Vegas and never saw a single bug. It is like dry as fuck, desert-like. Not saying they aren't there, but it's not like she was in the Mayan Riviera. This is all super sus. Don't let her gaslight you. She clearly got a hickey, which is dumb as fuck in itself, probably from the idiot who is too inexperienced to know what he was doing, and preemptively came up with an excuse knowing what it would look like. Out of character behavior. Neglecting her daughter. New young guy hanging off her, that is in photos she knew you could end up seeing. What about what you couldn't see? Eyebrow-raising texts. Comment 2. I used to travel regularly to Vegas several times a year for about 8 years, worked for the gambling industry. I have never seen a bug anywhere in the vicinity of Las Vegas. What I did see though was a lot of drunks and infidelity. I'm not saying she cheated. But he's right to be suspicious. Comment 3. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I've never gotten a bug bite that looked like a hickey. Did she show you her phone or provide any proof that could support her innocence or just dismiss you? The extra affection is a common move from guilt-ridden cheaters. Even if we stretch the imagination and believe it is a big bite, she wasn't acting trustworthy, nor was she a good mother while she was in Vegas, and she needs to address and correct that. OP. No, I haven't had access to her phone. We usually have an open phone policy, but it's not something we've ever really done. I'm sure it'll be another argument. Yeah, you don't get to disconnect from being a parent, especially to a minor, for extended holidays. You certainly don't ghost them on their birthday and when you promise to do something special for them and got the child excited about it, or hang up on them while they're crying. I'm not insecure. My wife's gone on retreats before. We both work outside the home and have the care for our daughter. So it's not an imbalance. My wife's work-life balance is out of sorts. She's in the company of other adults plenty. I've been with my wife on these retreats and other social events. I know how she is. She was off this entire trip, nor was it appreciated her entertaining a coworker who ignores boundaries, having his arm wrapped around her waist like he was claiming her or something. I trusted her when she said she had a bug bite. I got things to help her treat it when returned. It was only after I saw the bruise in person that there was no mistaking it was a hickey for me, and I questioned her on it. Update. 7 days later, I, 27 million, Wanted to give an update and thank everyone who reached out. The outside perspectives helped. Things are a roller coaster. I'm trying to process. It took a while for my wife, 28F, and me to have any real conversation about the bruise on her neck. We were stuck between arguing and her showering our daughter, 4F, and me with affection. I rarely saw the bruise because she was turtlenecked up. But I did note the healing process from reddish purple to yellow. There wasn't any more discussion about the Vegas retreat. She made it clear she was done talking about it and that she shouldn't need to defend herself to her husband. I told her she could do whatever she wanted, but I was done being treated like an idiot, and I wasn't sharing a bed with someone I couldn't trust. So I moved into the guest room. Communication stopped. The silences were palpable. Even our daughter noticed. I'm not proud of that. I try keeping her out of fights. My wife came to the guest room one night and asked if we could talk. I could tell she'd been crying. She said she hated the way things were between us. She felt she was losing me either way. I told her I needed complete honesty. She confessed she hooked up with that coworker, 23 million, on our daughter's birthday. The hickey was from him. She was lost in the heat of the moment and didn't realize he was sucking so hard on her neck. By her account, they made out while doing some on top of the clothes stuff and then he went down on her. It stopped there because he called her by a nickname that I affectionately call her. It snapped her back to the reality of her actions. She went to splash water on her face and saw the hickey. The guy made light of it and made a joke about the hickey being her souvenir. She blew up on him and kicked him out of her suite. Part of the reason she was avoiding me was out of guilt. She said she's coming clean because she doesn't want to hide things anymore. I asked her why she cheated. What was it about that guy she deemed worth risking everything? She claimed it wasn't him specifically, nor is she unhappy with our marriage. She doesn't really know how to explain it, but a part of her feels broken. The more she looks in the mirror, the more she sees her dad, 57 million. A cycle of being consumed with work, distant from the child, and the infidelity he put her mom, 55 degrees Fahrenheit, through. She said her family never talked about anything openly and how when she was growing up, my mother-in-law never addressed anything with her. I said her parents didn't make her cheat. She chose to party up with a guy who constantly disrespected our relationship. These were all her decisions, and she at any point could have chosen our family. She agreed. She wants to blame her parents but realizes this is on her. She apologized for cheating and for entertaining the guy's advances. She said she'll do whatever it takes to repair. Go to HR, quit her job, counseling, anything. She wants to make everything right. I told her I don't know what right looks like or if that's possible for us anymore. I knew we had our problems, but I thought there wasn't anything we couldn't talk out. She insisted we still could talk it out. We didn't have to give up on us. She tried giving this rally cry for our relationship, but I felt very numb. I said I didn't recognize her. Not just the betrayal of our vows but also how she treated our daughter. She's like a stranger. She feels she failed as a wife and mom, but she loves us both beyond words and wants our life together and our family intact. I told her I couldn't give her the answer she wanted and thought we needed to separate and reevaluate. She didn't want separation. She felt we should stay together in our home, but I told her a separation was happening. Either she was leaving the home or I was with our daughter. She consented to leaving so as to best not uproot our daughter so much. She asked for our daughter not to be taken away from her. My wife's staying with my in-laws. I know that's difficult in itself because she doesn't have the best relationship with her parents. One of the hardest parts is the shift for our daughter. Right now, she believes her mom's just busy with work per usual. She hasn't questioned it too much. My mother-in-law called the other day. She made no excuses for my wife, but she's advocating for us to work through it. She told me times when she heard my wife describe me as the anchor she always wanted. She believes there's something worth fighting for if I'm open. Despite some family opposition we faced throughout our relationship, my mother-in-law was always a supporter of us. I'm even more at a loss. I never imagined this kind of betrayal from my wife. She was my safe place. I feel numb yet broken. I'm in love with her. That hasn't changed. But I don't see myself, her, our relationship, or our family the same. Everything's more tense because it's fresh. I think this period of separation is for the best. I'm not sure about divorce. I haven't let myself fully go there. I'm not set either way. I don't know where things go from here, but I'm focusing on our daughter and taking things one step at a time. I feel that's all I can do right now. Thanks again to everyone for the support, it's much appreciated. TLDR update 4. My wife returned from a work retreat in Vegas with a hickey on her neck. She swears it's a bug bite, but I'm not convinced. I only feel more strongly when I consider how distant and weird she was during the retreat. We're stuck between arguing and her dousing our daughter and me with affection. I'm at a loss. I really need outside perspectives. How do I move forward? Comments. Comment 1. Do you think she is still trickling through you? How would the coworker know your nickname for her? Good luck onwards. OP. Also think about this part of your comment whenever your wife tells you she is sorry. Cheating on you is one thing, but your wife's behavior towards her daughter is sickening. Comment 2. I was just on a work trip with a coworker who has a couple of little kids similar in age to OP's. He had arranged his travel times to make it easier on them and went back to the hotel to call them every night. Nothing about how the wife is acting is normal or okay. Comment 3. They didn't stop until he came inside your wife. You know that, right? Comment 4. She had plenty of time to craft a story where she was less offensive. He went down on her only? Okay. Comment 5. Yeah, that's a convenient story. It's bad but offers a glimpse of it's not so bad she didn't really do anything to him. That's just not believable to me. Also the MIL is not your friend here OP, she's trying to help her child. Again, don't settle for this treatment. I found out my parents' will left everything to my lazy brother, despite my supporting them for years. They demanded money and smeared me online. My name is Jake, and any questions I had about my place in my family were eradicated the day I learned about the will. It wasn't even a dramatic sit-down in which my parents revealed the news. No, I discovered it purely by accident, by pure dumb luck. It happened a few months back when I was at their house, which I had been helping them pay for the past 5 years. I was in charge of the mortgage, food runs, and even house repairs, while my brother Eric did nothing. And by nothing, I mean nothing. No work, no obligations, just lying around, waiting for life to throw everything on a silver platter. My folks appeared to be more than willing to provide. That day, I was assisting my father with some paperwork because, as usual, neither of them could be bothered to figure out how to do things for themselves. He had requested me to scan some documents for him, legal and financial, and I didn't hesitate, until I saw it. There was the estate plan and last will and testament folder in the stack. I don't usually snoop, but curiosity got the better of me. After all, I had been the one to ensure they had a roof over their heads. It wasn't out of the ordinary to ponder how things were set up for the future. So I opened it. And that's when I noticed the words that made my stomach plummet. Everything, and I mean everything, was going to Eric. The house, their savings, and their property. There isn't a single mention of me, except from some general phrases like loving both of their sons equally. That is why they ensured that their golden child would inherit everything, while the son who kept them afloat received only a footnote. I felt foolish. Here I was, bending over backward for them, making sure their bills were paid on time, making sure they never went hungry, while they sat back and planned for a future in which I received nothing. And Eric? He wasn't simply lazy. He was entitled. He never raised a finger to assist them, never donated $1, yet he had persuaded them that he deserved everything. Perhaps because he was the younger son. Perhaps because they had always pampered him. Perhaps he understood just how to influence them. Whatever the reason, they'd made their decision. I sat there staring at the paper, my hands quivering with wrath and betrayal. How long did they plan this? Had they always planned for me to be their free financial safety net, offering nothing in return? Have they ever appreciated what I accomplished for them? I wasn't sure how long I'd been sitting there, but my father saw I wasn't scanning anything. Hey, Jake, what's taking so long? He inquired, going back into the room. I didn't even bother hiding the will. I raised it up and looked him in the eyes. So this is how it is? I inquired, my tone unnervingly calm. Everything to Eric? After everything I've done for you? My father's face paled for a second, but then he sighed, as if I were a small child having a tantrum. Jake, it's not what you think? Really? I snapped. Because it looks pretty damn clear to me. I've been paying your mortgage, helping with groceries, fixing the house up, while Eric does nothing, and you still decided he's the only one who matters? Dad was embarrassed, but instead of explaining himself, he simply said, "It's complicated." That was it. There was no apology or attempt to defend it beyond those two worthless sentences. Just a poor apology and an eager expression, as if he was waiting for me to drop it and return to being their personal ATM. I should have gone out right then, but I wanted to hear from each of them. So I called out for my mother. When she came in and saw the will in my hands, she didn't respond well. She had the decency to appear guilty, but what she said made my fury boil. "Jake, honey, you don't need the inheritance," she whispered softly, like if she were doing me a favor. "You have a good job. You're independent. Eric, well, he struggles. We just want to make sure he's taken care of. That was the moment something inside of me shattered. They were not even ashamed. They understood exactly what they were doing, and they believed it was entirely right. They had spent years encouraging Eric's laziness, and now they planned to reward it by giving him everything while dismissing me as an afterthought. I took a long breath, tightened my jaw, and placed the will on the table. "Got it," I said, my voice strangely calm. "Glad to know where we stand." Then I turned and marched out of the house, disregarding their protests and slamming the door behind me. They had made a decision. Now it was time for me to make mine. I did not return to their place after that. I did not call. I did not check in. For the first time in years, I let them deal with their own dang problems. If they needed to mend something, they could figure it out. If they wanted groceries, they could make their own way to the store. Most importantly, what if the mortgage bill showed up? Well, I wasn't the one paying for it anymore. The hush lasted almost 2 weeks. At first, I guess they thought I was simply pouting and would crawl back like usual. Perhaps they expected me to calm down and apologize for questioning their choice. But as the days passed with no news from me, and, more significantly, no financial assistance, you could almost sense the change in their mood. Then, one afternoon, my phone vibrated. Dad messaged, "The property taxes are due." That was it. Number, "Hey, how have you been?" Number, "Sorry for what happened." Number, "We really appreciate everything you've done." Just a cold transactional message, as if I were still a walking ATM that they could access whenever they wanted. I stared at the computer for a time, almost amused by how predictable the results were. Did they truly believe they could just demand money like nothing had happened? That I would continue to serve as their financial safety net, even after they made it quite plain that I was disposable? I gently typed back, "I'm sure Eric will handle it, since the house is his and all." It took exactly 5 minutes until my mother called. I let it ring. Then another text came in. Mom messaged, "Jake, please don't be like this. We need to talk." Oh, now they wanted to speak. Now that their debts were stacking up, a reality was finally staring them in the face. I waited an hour before responding. "There's nothing to talk about. You made your choice. Now you can live with it." I figured it was the end of the day. I had made my position clear, and no part of me felt terrible about it. But then Eric decided to join in. His text arrived late that evening, and the moment I saw his name appear on my phone, I knew it was going to be something nasty. Sure enough, when I opened it, I was met with utter entitlement. Eric messaged, "Dude, why are you being such a drama queen? It's not a big deal, just help them out like you always do." I almost laughed. Is this not a significant deal? He actually seemed as if I had no right to be upset about this. I wrote back, "No, I think you've got it covered, since you're the favorite and all." Eric messaged, "Oh my God, are you seriously mad about the will? Grow up, man, it's just money." Oh, suddenly it was only about money. It didn't matter anymore now that he had the inheritance. The hypocrisy was astonishing. I shot back, "Then you won't mind using some of that money to pay for the mortgage, right?" Silence. A few minutes later, my mother texted me again, this time in full guilt trip mode. Mom messaged, "Jake, we're your parents. Family takes care of each other. We did so much for you growing up, and now you're just abandoning us?" I had to take a deep breath to keep from tossing my phone across the room. Abandoning them? I'd spent years ensuring that they never had to struggle, while they coddled and rewarded Eric's lazy behavior. And now that they'd had to face the repercussions of their own actions, I was the bad guy? I was not falling for it, not this time. I replied, "You made it clear I wasn't part of the family when you left me out of the will. Now Eric can take care of you." I can imagine my mother gasping loudly. She had a knack for playing the victim, even when she was in the wrong. A few minutes later, my father sent another text, and this one made me furious. Dad messaged, "We're not asking for much, just enough to cover the mortgage for a few more months until we figure things out. Don't be selfish." Selfish? The word caused my blood to boil. I'd been bailing them out for years, devoting my own money, time, and energy to make their lives easier. I had done all a good son should do. So, how did they repay me? I made sure I received nothing in exchange. And now that I've finally stood up for myself, I'm the one being selfish. I tightened my jaw, took a big breath, and texted back, "Number, I'm done." Then I shut off the phone. They'd made their choice. They were now going to have to live with it. The stillness lasted one day. I knew my parents would not give up so quickly, but I wasn't prepared for what happened next. The next morning, I received a notification on my phone, a bank transfer request. I grimaced as I unlocked my phone to check. It was from my mother. She had genuinely asked me for money. As if I were an ATM. What is the amount? $3,500? I looked at it in surprise, partially chuckling at the arrogance. There's no message. There's no explanation. Just a cold, blatant demand for the precise amount required to cover their outstanding mortgage. They didn't even ask anymore. They just assumed I would give in. I declined without hesitation. Not even 5 minutes later, my phone rang. It was Mom. I let it ring. Then followed another text. Mom messaged, "Jake, I know you saw the request. Why did you decline it?" I took my time before responding. Because it's not my responsibility. Try Eric. Another call. Declined. Then another text. Mom messaged, "We're going to lose the house if you don't help us." Oh, this was an emergency. After years of exploiting me as a walking wallet, they were finally facing the repercussions. I wrote back. Maybe you should have thought about that before deciding I didn't matter. A few seconds later, Dad joined in. He said, "You're really going to let your parents become homeless?" That one had me laughing out loud. The manipulation was so obvious it was almost comical. They weren't broke. They were not going to be put on the streets. They simply didn't want to go into their personal savings because they were accustomed to me covering everything. I disregarded them for the remainder of the day. That night, I received an SMS from Eric. Eric messaged, "Dude, just send them the money already. You're making this a bigger deal than it is." I clenched my jaw. Did this entitled little jerk really think he could lecture me? I wrote back. "You mean the same money you're inheriting? Why don't you send it?" His response came quickly. Eric messaged, "You know I don't have that kind of cash right now, right? So now it's about affordability?" He was fine with me draining my accounts, but whenever it was his turn, he had nothing to offer. I responded, "Guess you better figure it out then, bro. You're the one they chose." No response. I went to bed feeling strangely relieved, as if I had finally broken free from years of manipulation. However, the situation worsened the following day. I was at work when I received a call from my apartment's front desk. Receptionist. "Hey, Jake, your parents are here." I almost dropped my phone. "What?" She paused before adding, "They're saying it's an emergency, and that you won't answer their calls." Oh my God. They showed up at my flat solely because I stopped paying their bills. I took a deep breath and pinched the bridge of my nose. Please don't let them up. I'm not expecting them. There was an awkward moment. They're being kind of pushy. I clenched my jaw. I don't care. They can leave. I hung up and instantly received a text from Mom. Mom messaged, "We downstairs. Open the door." No question. There's no explanation. Just another demand. I didn't respond. Another text message from Mom. "Jake, we're not leaving until you talk to us." I breathed sharply and stood up from my desk. They were not about to back down. Fine. I was about to teach them a lesson they would never forget. I snatched my keys and stormed downstairs, my blood seething. I was not scared. I was infuriated. The sheer chutzpah of these guys to walk up uninvited at my house and demand money as if I were their personal ATM. Not even a phone call beforehand. Not even a half-hearted apologies. Just a straight-up ambush. They actually thought they could corner me into submission, like if I were a naive child? I yanked the door open, and there they were. Mom, Dad, and, of course, Eric, all standing in a close formation, as if they were preparing to hold a family intervention. Mom had her arms crossed, her typical disappointed mother expression locked and loaded. Dad stood rigid, hands in his pockets, his face a mix of frustration and entitlement, as if he couldn't believe I was forcing him to do this in person. And Eric, the tiny leech, had the guts to appear bored. Like the entire scenario was only mildly inconvenient for him. As if he was not the cause of any of this. When Mom saw me, she went into full theatrical. "Mom. Jake. Finally. We need to talk." I leaned against the door frame, arms crossed. "Number you need to leave." She blinked, as if she was unable to absorb what I had just said. "Excuse me? You heard me?" My voice was calm, controlled, and firm. "You don't get to just show up at my apartment demanding money. That's insane." Dad gave a quick scoff. "Are you seriously going to let us lose the house over a petty grudge?" I gave out a frigid laugh. "A petty grudge? Oh, you mean the one where you judged I was good enough to pay your bills but not worthy of inclusion in your will? Is that a grudge?" Mom gasped and clutched her chest, as if I had just hit her. Jake, that is not fair. We merely did what we believed was best for our family. I tilted my head. Best for the family? You mean the best for Eric? Simply say it. Silence. A prolonged, heavy silence. Eric, who had been unusually silent until now, finally spoke up. Look, man, I don't want to get involved in this. I did not ask for anything. I turned to him, finally letting go. No, you simply sit back and accept all that is given to you. You are 28 years old, Eric. Get a damn job. His face grew crimson. What the hell, dude? I stepped closer. You've heard me. Do you want to inherit the house? Begin acting like a homeowner. Do you want to be the golden child? Begin paying their damn bills. I'm done being your personal banker. Eric averted his gaze, his attention drawn to the sidewalk. Mom took a deep breath and refocused her guilt trip. Jake, he's your brother. I nodded. Yep. And I've been there for him longer than you have. Dad's face clouded. You're being selfish? I laughed, a genuine laugh. Oh, that's rich coming from you. I gestured between them. You two agreed that Eric deserved everything, while I deserved nothing. And now when it's time to pay the price for your decision, you're attempting to coerce me into repairing it for you. Not happening. Mom's voice became sharper. We thought you'd be mature about this. I raised an eyebrow. Mature? You mean I should simply accept that I was betrayed and continue to pay your bills? Because, let's be honest, that's what you wanted. Dad stepped nearer, attempting to loom over me as he had when I was a child. We reared you, Jake. We provided you with food, clothing, and everything else you needed. The least you can do is help us right now. I looked him dead in the eyes. I already have. For years. You repaid me by cutting me out. Mom's lips twitched. We thought you'd understand. I exhaled and shook my head. Oh, I understand completely. I understand that I was never your family, but rather a paycheck. Silence. An oppressive and unmistakable silence. I turned to see Eric, who was still trying to be invisible. And you? What is your excuse? You had years to mature, organize your life, and contribute, but you didn't. You knew they'd take care of you. And when they're gone, you just expect me to step in, right? Eric eventually snapped. What would you like me to say, man? I did not ask for this. I nodded slowly. Right, you did not ask. You just benefited. His mouth opened and then closed. Nothing. He had nothing. Mom tried one final guilt trip. Jake, we are family. Family takes care of one another. I stared at her for a long time before responding. Exactly. So, why didn't you care for me? She froze. There are no words, no comebacks, nothing. I exhaled slowly, feeling lighter than I had in years. We're done here. I turned and walked back inside, shutting the door behind me. My phone buzzed before I even got back to my couch. Dad sent a new text. Wow. After everything we've done for you, are you really going to leave us? I smirked and typed back. Number, you abandoned me. I'm just now accepting it. I pressed send. Then I blocked their numbers. But I had no idea that blocking them would simply make matters worse. Things quickly spiraled out of control. Less than a day after blocking them, I began receiving posts on Facebook. My parents were never very tech-savvy, but they knew how to voice their problems online, especially when they felt self-righteous. At first, I assumed it was just my parents being dramatic. After all, that was their go-to move, blowing out family turmoil for everyone to see. But as I browsed through their feeds, I noticed it wasn't just about me no longer helping with bills. The posts were camouflaged as family affection, but they were carefully veiled attacks on me. Mom had posted something about how she didn't raise her son to be so selfish, and how true family helps each other no matter what. A number of her friends responded that I was a disappointment and so out of touch with what really matters. Then, Dad responded with his own post. So-called family members should never abandon you when you need them the most. We gave our children everything, and this is how they repay us? My son, who should be aiding us in our golden years, has decided to desert us. He tagged me and added the passive-aggressive "I hope you're happy" at the end. The real kicker, however, came from Eric. I should have known he'd join in on the drama. He published a post full of falsehoods. Some individuals believe that family is all about money. They do not realize that family is about love and sacrifice. I would do anything for my parents, but some individuals don't understand that. They're too caught up in themselves to know that true love is aiding those who reared you. He even made a disguised shot at me. I wish some people could understand what it truly means to be family. I love my parents and appreciate everything they've done for me. That was it. That was my breaking point. I sat there staring at the television, stunned. How had things come to this point? They flipped the script and made me the villain, the self-centered son who refused to support his sacrificial parents, the son who didn't appreciate all the love they gave me over the years. How could they? I had always been the one who worked hard, contributed, and never complained, and now, somehow, they had convinced themselves they were right, and they were telling everyone that I was the issue. I didn't want to react immediately. I took a step back, collected my thoughts, and waited a few hours to ensure that I wasn't acting out of rage. But when I thought about it, I decided I couldn't let them get away with it. If they were going to drag my name through the mud, I was going to correct the record. So I grabbed out my phone and began typing. I created my own Facebook account, which I kept for close friends and true family, and wrote a lengthy update. I was not interested in playing their game. I did not want to get mired down in petty back and forths. I wanted to tell the truth. This is what I wrote. I know I've been silent for the past several days, but I can't keep it up any longer. My relatives have been spreading false information about me online. They've painted me as the villain, the selfish person who refuses to assist my parents in their time of need. I'm here to set the record straight. I've always assisted my family. I've been helping with bills, paying for groceries, and supporting them in any way I can since I was able to find work. However, there comes a moment when you can no longer give without being respected. Over the years, I've seen my parents favor Eric by giving him everything, the house, the money, and the attention. Meanwhile, I was expected to continue providing without ever being treated as equal. I'm sure some of you are thinking, well, that's just how family works. But here's the truth. Family should be reciprocal. When I learned that my parents had left everything to Eric in their will, I recognized how one-sided our relationship had been. They did not give me a second thought. They've made it apparent that I'm only the one they can rely on when things go tough, not the one they truly want around unless it's convenient for them. For years, I've been responsible for paying for their lifestyle. I've paid for vacations, bills, and even assisted with things like house taxes. And for what? To be viewed as a backup plan? I am done. I am not merely a wallet from which they may withdraw money whenever they need it. I am a human being and deserve to be respected. I've earned the right to be treated like I'm important, not just when they need something from me. As for Eric, it is time for him to grow up. He's 28 years old and has never worked in his life. He has never taken responsibility for anything. My parents have been enabling him for so long that it's no surprise he's their favorite. But here's the thing, he's had plenty of time to sort his life out. And now, it is time for him to stand on his own 2 feet. Everyone who has been following this drama and supporting my parents has to understand something. Every tale has 2 sides. Indeed, family is vital. However, it's also about mutual respect. I've contributed enough for a lifetime, and I won't apologize for taking a step back. This is not me turning away from my family. This is my last decision to choose myself. And to my parents, I wish you the best, but I'm done being your doormat. When I hit the post, I felt a sense of relaxation. For the first time in my life, I was telling the world the truth. About my family, how they had used me for years, and how they had always expected me to be the one to save them, without ever considering what I needed. I wasn't going to let their story dominate my life anymore. The reactions were swift. Some people I hadn't spoken with in years came forward to show their support. A number of my cousins, acquaintances of my parents, and even some distant relatives liked the article and sent me private messages apologizing for what I had gone through. It felt liberating to finally have the truth out there, not buried beneath guilt trips and deceptive conduct. Then followed the backlash. My parents and Eric went crazy. Eric texted me, "You're a traitor? You really had to air all our business out like this? You have no respect for family." Dad called me and yelled into the phone, "You've ruined everything, Jake. You'll regret this. You'll regret cutting us off. You'll regret turning your back on your own family." But I did not regret it. Not for 1 second. I blocked them all. I was finished. And, for the first time in my life, I was free. Free of the toxic grasp they held on me for so long. As the days passed, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I had had enough of being treated as less than. I was tired of always having to solve everyone else's problems. And now, I was finally free to live my life on my own terms. So no, I don't feel horrible about cutting them off. I deserved better. I still do. And from now on, I've decided to surround myself with people who value me for who I am, not for what I can offer them. It's time for me to go forward, for good. And I will.